Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. This will be another live session. We're going to keep it nice and short tonight. The session will go on as long as the questions come in. How to lose money in real estate. Most channels focus on how easy it is. Even a lazy person can do this. Or what the cash flow is. Last week we did a video with the three amigos, Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, on what the first 5 years of investing looked like compared to the last 5 years of investing. Basically showing that this is worth it. But it's not always puppies and kittens. I'm going to go over some of the really common ways that people lose money in real estate. And then I'm going to cover the easiest way that people lose money in real estate. And this will give people a chance to put your questions in the comments. And like I said, the live stream will go as long as the questions keep coming in and my voice lasts. I have my vodka Mountain Dew, so we'll be good. If this is your first time to my channel and you're checking out a live stream, especially if you're into real estate, the purpose of my content is to help the average individual realize that you can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less and make work optional, even if you're not starting from the best position. That's the purpose of every video that I make. A lot of the videos are short. I try for 10 to 20 minutes teaching a concept or a strategy that you'll use to be more successful in investing. Live streams tend to be a bit longer. The first 10 to 20, sometimes 30 minutes covers a topic like this. So this might be the portion of the video that you rewatch. It's not really a list because some of these things kind of overlap. But one of the first ways that people lose money in real estate is by not having focus. I like the saying, if we chase 5 rabbits, we starve. And that doesn't mean that you don't study a bunch of different strategies like wholesale, flipping, the BRRRR method, buy and hold, short-term rental, long-term rental, local, at a distance, storage, commercial, all the different ways that you can invest in real estate. And that was not a comprehensive list. But look for the one that makes sense to you, what fits your schedule, and then focus on that type of strategy, but be ready to pivot. You may have to change your strategies based on what happens in your market. One of the things that's really important to picking the rabbit that you're going to chase or the strategy is understanding what your exit is. If you are looking to make work optional, in my case, I like buy and hold rentals that I don't plan on ever selling. I don't really plan on ever tapping the equity. So I'm not really worried about appreciation or principal pay down where actual wealth comes from. I'm more concerned with cash flow to make work optional. And since I don't ever plan on selling, it's literally until death do we part. I want my kids to inherit my properties. There are strategies like Kris Krohn's, really good YouTube channel to check out. It's Kris Krohn. Both of those start with a K. High energy, gets you excited. He might have changed now that he's much larger. He has a bigger subscription base and he does syndications. But when he was first starting out, his focus was to buy and hold rental properties, keep it for about 7 years before the large CapEx things kick in, and then sell it, preferably with a lease to purchase where the tenant becomes the buyer. Higher rate, still owns the note, can foreclose if the tenant stops paying, and he gets out of it before he has those large expenses. If your strategy is something like wholesaling or flipping, you really have to figure out your exit strategy, because those are episodical. They're like a job. You stop working, money stops coming in. Figuring out the strategy that you want to focus on helps you figure out the tactics you need to know. If you're going to do flipping, you need to find properties that need work, that have that equity that you can build in. You need a list of buyers. There's different tactics for flipping versus buy and hold. There's different tactics for finding a 20-unit apartment complex versus finding a duplex. So figuring out that strategy and your end goal will tell you what you need to learn to get there. One of the easiest ways to lose money in real estate is to think that you don't need money to invest in real estate. Look at how many books there are and how many YouTube channels focus on how to invest in real estate with little or no money down. Brandon Turner from BiggerPockets, it's one of his first books he put out, was How to Invest with Little or No Money Down. The mistake is when a new investor thinks, I don't have any money, so that must be the strategy for me. Investing with little or no money down doesn't mean that you don't have money. It means that there are strategies for investing in real estate that don't take a lot of your capital. But you need reserves. You need an emergency fund because problems are going to come up. Some people talk about getting into flipping. And the idea is using the BRRRR method. Use hard money to acquire the asset so you don't have a lot of your own money in the deal. You use the money that you borrowed to fix the property, and then you either refinance your money out or you sell the property. What if you get the after repair value wrong? What if the timeline is wrong? What if it doesn't appraise? All of those things that can go wrong. If you don't have money to solve the problem, not only do you lose the property, you lose any investors you're working with. You could walk away from a rental property that you lose in debt. You could still owe money on a property you don't even own anymore. So if you're going to think of a strategy where you invest with little or no money down, you want to have reserves. You still need to learn how to save. The order of operations for real estate is the same for everybody. Starts with saving. If you don't know how to live on less than you make when you're making not a lot, you're not going to magically start saving when you start making more. Actually, this next subject kind of came to me when I was listening to the latest Real Estate Rookie podcast. I think it was like episode 155. And I was very excited about the episode. This was a service member. She was doing buy and hold. She'd used her VA loan. She talked about how you can use it more than once. And she was doing buy and hold properties to build cash flow. Getting out of the military as real estate agent and having rental income so that she has a side hustle to support growing the business of real estate. And then in the last 5 minutes, she said something that broke my heart. An easy way to lose money in real estate is to think bigger is better. Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 6 or 7 lessons in there, I forget how many, I focused on the first and third the most, talks about the monopoly theory from the game Monopoly. 3 green houses, 1 red hotel. 3 green houses, 1 red hotel. The concept that a lot of new investors have is, and we hear this because there's so many books on this that don't get into the problem. You buy single family houses or duplexes or triplexes or fourplexes. You grow a portfolio and then you sell and you 1031 into a 20-unit apartment complex. There is a massive difference in the lending options for 4 units and less or 5 units and more. There's a list of reasons why I don't want to invest in 5 units or more. To build passive income that makes work optional doesn't take a lot of properties. I actually reached financial independence where I made work optional with only 7 units. So it doesn't take 40, 100, or 8,000 like some of the investors we see on YouTube. It only took 7 to actually make work optional. I was making $100 more a month with 7 rental units than I was making when I was a police officer. So not a lot of money, barely a livable life, but work was optional. Cops don't make a lot. When you have 5 units or more, here's the problem. Right now, when I buy a fourplex and I'm being paid to live here, I live in one of the units, rent out the other 3, I have 30-year fixed rate debt. If property values drop by 30%, I don't care. It would be buying things on sale. I don't care about the properties I already have. I'm not losing anything because I'm not using equity. I don't worry about appreciation or principal pay down. I'm working with cash flow. And after the 2008 crash, rents actually went up. So I'm not worried about a crash or a correction. I'm more worried about people who say that there's a crash or a correction coming. The problem with 5 units or more is you have usually an adjustable rate. Usually you have, it can be 20 or 30-year amortization, but you'll have what is called a loan reevaluation period or a balloon payment. It can be either one. So in 5, 7, or 10 years, you either need to come up with a bunch of money, which means a refinance. You're hoping that your net operating income has improved so that you can refinance. You're hoping that prices have gone down or interest rates have gone down in the future. And if you've met the government, that's probably not going to happen. What if you have a bad year? The 1 year they're going to do a loan reevaluation and you don't have the net operating income to justify it. You could be forced to sell when you're underwater. Again, walking away from a property in debt. You can be forced to refinance for an interest rate that is higher, and now you can't afford the payments, especially when you had a bad year, and that's why your net operating income didn't look good enough. It is possible to get 30-year fixed rate debt on commercial properties, 15, 20 units. Generally, you have to have the portfolio to support it, like Michael Zuber does. For most of us, when we're just starting out, most lenders aren't going to offer us that type of product. So the biggest barrier for me is that it's not a 30-year fixed rate debt. The loan reevaluation period kills it for me. So my plan, my ultimate plan in investing, no matter how big my portfolio grows, is to stay 4 units or less. I like the fixed rate debt. When I get to 10 mortgages, and from then on we go to commercial loans because we can only have 10 mortgages in our name. I only have 6 right now. I have 7 properties, 6 mortgages, and out of those 7 properties, there's 16 rental units. When I get to 10 and I have to go for commercial lending, then I might consider maybe more than 5 units, but I still think I'm going to want to do anything I can to avoid a loan reevaluation period. Because small multifamily, 4 units or less, the value of the property is based on comps. What do other properties in the area sell for? 5 units or more, the value of the property is based on profit. Does that property make money? If it does, value goes up. If it makes more, value goes up. If it goes down, value goes down. I mentioned the crash or the correction. That is pretty much the easiest way to lose money in real estate today. Since 2013, when in 2008, property values took a nosedive and they slowly went back up. In 2013, they started to pass where they were in 2008. And a lot of people started saying, don't buy now. Prices are as high as they were in 2008. There is a crash or a correction coming. So if you buy, then you're going to lose value. If you wait, you're going to be able to buy it on sale. From 2013 until 2022, people have been saying, don't buy now because prices are too high. This is unsustainable. There's a million reasons why there's going to be a crash or a correction. They always quote price. They talk about interest rates. We do not have any of the indicators that we had in 2008. We're starting to see some, but if those went into effect today, that's a 3 to 5 year problem from now. We don't have adjustable rate mortgages. It was over 50% before the crash in 2008. We're under 5% right now that are doing adjustable rate mortgages. We don't have ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets, where you could just walk into a bank and say, I make $400,000 a year, give me a loan. And you sign a thing and they loan you the money. We don't have 105% loan to value mortgages as a normal. People were wrapping closing costs into the loan, borrowing 100%. So prices dip, your interest rate goes up, you can't make the payment, and you can't refinance because you're underwater on the property. That's the problems we don't have now. Where I say that we're starting to see those problems is lenders are starting to push adjustable rate mortgages. Now, they're not hitting ninja loans and they're not hitting 105% loan to value yet. But when those things start to happen, now we can predict with the crystal ball, which is over there out of my reach, 3 to 5 years for there to be a correction. So the longer you wait, the more you're going to pay. Some people say, well, if interest rates keep going up, like we keep hearing there's going to be 7 rate increases in 2022, prices will come down because of payment. And that's not true. Interest rates don't set prices. Wages do. And we are seeing record wage inflation. And now we're starting to see a 40-year loan product. So if you take the loan and instead of borrowing it over 30 years and having a payment, you can borrow it over 40 years, which brings the payment down, which means we have a window right now where we can start using the 40-year loan product. But in the next 6 months to a year, prices will adjust and go. I'm estimating a 15 to 20% increase in prices of properties just based on the 40-year loan product. Add to that wage inflation, people needing to be bribed to come back into the office to get off of unemployment, extra unemployment, extended unemployment. all the free money that's been given out over the last almost 2 years. So waiting for a crash or a correction means that you're going to miss out on all the stuff that people from 2013 have been missing. Cash flow, appreciation, principal pay down. Literally almost a decade of people waiting for something that hasn't happened yet. When we lose money in real estate, it's usually on our first or second deal, as we're figuring out what we want to do and how things work, as we learn the timing and what it's like to find a contractor, find a tenant, screen a tenant, place a tenant, keep a tenant, all the things that it takes to make that happen. So one of the things I don't recommend doing is when you're first investing in those first 2 or 3 rentals, don't pull out home equity on your primary residence. Don't put your house where you live at risk. Don't take a loan against your 401k or your retirement account. Don't put those funds at risk in the window of time when we're most likely to make our mistakes. Once you have 2 or 3 rentals and you understand the timeline and you understand how to get area average rents and you've learned your market and you have a reasonable sense of confidence in your ability to get the return you're looking for, then it makes sense to take risks with those other items like your home equity or your retirement accounts. But I wouldn't start with that in the beginning. You want to lose the money you've saved to invest, not the money you've saved to live or to retire in the beginning. Here's one I almost fell prey to. One of the easiest ways to lose money in real estate is to listen to advice from investors. The people you know are not in your position. They don't have your resources. They don't have your goal. They might not have the same strategy. When I first started looking at investing in real estate, I thought buy and hold. I have a friend who has over 30 rental units. He's absolutely financially free. He's a real estate agent. So I go to him and I say, hey, I want to invest in real estate. Be my mentor. I took him to lunch. I used the term mentor and he flinched because he didn't want to be a mentor. He didn't want a mentee. The first 2 small multifamily properties that he suggested to me would have bankrupted me because while he has 30 rental units, out of all of those, he's only ever owned 1 duplex. All of the rest are single family. And as an agent, he had decades sitting in his Windermere office waiting for the best deal to walk in the door to buy it. I was trying to use mortgages using a cash flow calculator he's never had to worry about. So your agent and your lender and the people you know who have invested successfully in real estate aren't your advice. They shouldn't be your mentors. They could be a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. But again, they don't have your resources. They don't have your starting position. They don't have your goals. Find somebody, once you've learned the strategy you want and you start to learn the basic tactics that go with it, find somebody who's done that to emulate, somebody who's invested in and use the BRRRR method. I would not help you do the BRRRR method. I haven't done one. I wouldn't help you do flipping. I couldn't be the best advice for you. I would be able to help you find somebody who does know that stuff. Same thing with buy and hold. I invest in small multifamily in my area. I don't invest at a distance. So if I was going to invest at a distance, I would start with David Green's book, the book on long distance investing, educate myself, watch a bunch of YouTube channels on investing at a distance to learn that before I took action. One of the things to really remember about your lender and your agent while they work in the industry, they work in the business. Again, I said they're not your mentor because they don't have the same starting point, goal, resources. They're not your mentor because their job, your lender's job, is to sell loan products. Your agent's job is to conduct transactions, to make sure things close. They might have the best intentions. Most of the lenders I've talked to with decades of experience have no clue how cash flow works. They're looking at a metric that says, our charts say you're approved for the next loan for up to this amount. But they're not looking at the way an investor looks at the timeline. What is my NOI? What is my cash on cash return? They're just looking at a chart that says you're a safe enough bet to do this loan with. So be really careful looking at your lender or your agent for advice, especially with the statistic of most real estate agents never own one rental property. I've worked with both investor and agents who have properties and invest in agents. One was brand new, like brand new, starting out. I've done 4 transactions with him now. The one with a ton of experience was the one that would have set me up to have some problems. I'm so glad I didn't land those first 2 properties once I actually educated myself and learned to run the numbers. Man, the new agent who had never invested but was starting out had a good brokerage and a good, not a mentor, but an agent at the thing that he could go to for help. So as he was learning, I didn't need an agent that knew what was happening, because even if an agent knows, the first one I worked with, doesn't mean that they have your starting point, resources, and goals. So if the agents and the lenders might not understand cash flow, that should be your first step. Understand the math. Matt, the lumberjack landlord, often says, it's only math. It is only math. Math is the first step for screening a property. There's several other things that you're going to do to screen a property to help limit tenant turnover and to protect your asset, to diversify. But learning how to run the math, learning that cash on cash return on investment, COC ROI, understanding that by knowing what the prices are, what the interest rates are, so you know what your payment's going to be, how much insurance costs, what the taxes are for your area. That's one of the biggest problems too, and I'll cover that in a second, is taxes is a mistake that a lot of people, when they invest in real estate, make a mistake with that. But you also have to know how to understand the area average rents and how to get that quickly. If you don't know how to get area average rents, how can you figure out what you're going to make? I actually had a lender tell me this during the transaction, basically communicating back and forth with emails saying, yeah, I'm buying this duplex. And he said, oh, well, if your payment's this, you just need to set your rents at this. His perception was, you have expenses, so as the owner, you can set your rents where you want to make sure you're going to make a profit. I have not worked with that lender since. And not because of that, because I don't care what their knowledge of investing was. There was other reasons, but that's not how rents work. It's not how any of real estate works. Area average rents set rents. Wages set area average rents. Supply and demand is a factor too. So learn how to find the area average rents. Originally, I would use Rentometer. And yesterday, on Valentine's Day, when I'm recording this, there was a deal where you can get a year's worth of Rentometer for $39. And 2 years ago, up until 2 years ago, I used Rentometer pretty consistently. They were pretty accurate, but they were using a year's worth of data. And they would look at the last 12 months and they would get the area average rents that way. In 2020 and 2021, rents went up so fast that was inaccurate. Historical data no longer worked. So for the last 2 years, I have not used Rentometer, and I would go to apartments.com, Craigslist. When I was using Rentometer, I used to call the housing authority because Section 8 was pretty accurate, but they've fallen behind too. Recently, Rentometer changed from a 12-month period to a quarter period. So you look at 3 months, and their rents are more accurate. They'll probably catch up for 2022. They weren't very good in November, December 2021. So you can use Rentometer, but still, like you are a renter, go to apartments.com, Craigslist, maybe Trulia, Zillow, Redfin, any of those platforms, Facebook Marketplace, and think, if I was trying to rent right now in my area the same number of bedrooms, what would my rents be? Find that yourself until you learn your area. Once your area, you don't have to do the research that much every time. You just have to look it up every now and then to see what's happening with it. The 1% rule is flawed and outdated. That is not a math system anybody should be using to buy properties. There are some markets where it works. In those markets, sure. But that doesn't point out, is property tax $1,000 a year or $16,000 a year? You know, literally California and New Jersey, there's a massive difference in their taxes. Do you have a $500 a month HOA, or is there no HOA at all? The cash on cash method is the easiest way to figure out if a deal is worth pursuing. What is the return going to be using as many factors as you can? 4 units or less, I have never once heard or understood what a cap rate is. I don't need to. I'm not investing in commercial 5 units or more where cap rates can have some kind of an impact. So if you're going commercial, learn what a cap rate is. I've studied a lot of videos, never been able to find a way to apply it to in any way that makes sense or means anything to 4 units or less. One of the main reasons to learn how to do the math is speed. Another easy way to lose money in real estate is to not take action. You need to know your market, the footprint of where your business is. What area are you looking at? You need to know what the area average rents are. So when you see a property that hits the MLS, each area is a little different. Study your market. In my area, between Tacoma and Olympia in Washington State, if a small multifamily hits the MLS, first off, it's on the MLS. Redfin, Zillow, that is dated. By the time the properties I've purchased have hit Redfin and Zillow, they were already closed, and it was almost a month after I closed. So that's a 2-month gap at least from when I saw it on the MLS to when it finally popped up on those secondary areas or secondary platforms. When it hits the MLS, I have between 1 and 2 hours to get an offer in, an actual official emailed offer with DocuSign. If you wait more than a couple of hours, it's gone. Most of us as investors think, if I was going to sell a property, here are the steps I would take. I would get an agent. I would find out an estimate of my property. I would ask for comps. I would do comparables. I would figure out what I think I'm going to get for it. I would list. I would make sure it was on as many platforms for visibility as possible. I would wait several days to see what offers come in, and then I would go for the strongest one, most likely to close, that's going to get me the best price. Logically, as an investor, all of that makes sense. I should make a video on how to do that. Sellers are rarely investors. A lot of sellers are people who inherited the property. Somebody who tried real estate and 10 or 20 years later has realized it is not for them, and they've not really been an investor. They haven't kept up with technology. They haven't educated themselves. I have friends who own rental properties who have never once raised rent on a tenant, which works fine for them. But when we see a property for sale, we're thinking, as an investor, what would I want? Some people who inherited or just want out of the property purchased a property at a fraction of what it's selling for now and can't mentally get their mind wrapped around how much they're actually going to make. So when you make an asking price offer within a couple of hours, usually the people I've been working with that get their offers accepted, and yes, we get outbid sometimes, but that seller jumps on it. They want to get this locked down. Do things like submit a letter that's from your lender that says you're likely to close, you're a strong borrower, you're not the first deal with them, or whatever your history is, to make it more likely to get closed, to get accepted. But speed is a huge factor. One of the easy ways to lose money in real estate is to be lazy. I'm a lazy person. I invest in such a way that makes a lazy person's life better, but I don't want to be lazy when I'm investing. When you purchase a property and you can tell that this was a house that added the other side for a duplex, or it's a house with a built-out basement, or something that looks like there's been a value add to the property, check permits. Each area is different, but the laws can really get you into a lot of trouble. You can usually tell when an appraiser does the appraisal and you're looking at like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the value comes back at a 2-bedroom, 2-bath because it used to have a den and the house has a septic. And with the county, it's filed that that septic supports 2 bedrooms. So that den has been converted to a bedroom. It looks like 3 bedrooms. You're going to rent it out as 3 bedrooms, but it's non-conforming. And in some areas, if tenants find out and they take you into the city, not only do they get to move out and break the lease, but you could have to give that person back every penny of rent because it was a non-conforming rental. If you go to sell it and it's not permitted, again, when done right, that appraiser will only see 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a den. So you might not expect the appreciation you would off of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Check for permits, make sure work is legal, make sure that the property is zoned for what you're going to use it for. I think in most areas, they've gotten away from a lot of the single family house zoning, but there were times where there was single family zoning where there was a duplex and it was not zoned. I looked at a trailer park with a friend. We were not trailer park, mobile home park. Don't know the vernacular because I haven't invested in it yet. But we looked and it was non-conforming, and there was too much risk with that property. Everybody's saying, oh, it's grandfathered in, but we don't control what the next person who gets into that position with your county or your municipality is going to say about that property. One of the things I actually did where I lost money in real estate in the very beginning is I didn't run it like a business. A couple of weeks ago, one of the live streams was how to run it like a business. I didn't have a lease. I leased with a handshake. I didn't have a backbone to stick to a lease, even if I had one. But how would you run this as a business? Think if you were a property manager working for someone else and had to explain to that person, how did you screen your tenants? How did you set your rents? How did you justify the repairs? One thing I understand, my W-2 job is I work at a truck driving school. I'm the president of commercial driver school here in Washington State. I believe I perform a lot better working for people than if I owned the company. Same with rentals. In the beginning, I just had a rental. I didn't even see myself as a landlord. I was just going to rent it out to a friend because who can trust a stranger, right? But if I was running a business, I would prefer to rent to a stranger who's more likely to be held to a contract. I would have a contract, and then I would stick to that contract. Doesn't mean you can't make concessions and say, okay, I understand with this exact reason why your rent's going to be a week late or whatever you can do, but run it like a business. How would a business handle that? Look at property management before you self-manage to see how they run it. When it comes to running it like a business, one of the things that a lot of investors do is we forget to self-educate. Doesn't seem a problem if you're one of the 48 people sitting here right now watching. You are here self-educating yourself. But when I first started, I thought, I want to make work optional. I want to invest in real estate and replace my living expenses without any education whatsoever. To become a Marine, it was 13-week boot camp, infantry school, MOS training. To become a police officer, it was a 6-month academy. If I wanted to work in a field that required a degree, you're talking years in college to get that degree to work in that field. And I thought, I'll just jump into some industry, replace my living expenses with no education whatsoever. That can be video, that can be podcasts, that can be audiobooks, it can be networking, local REI meetups. Go and get that interaction going. Self-education. We're almost done with the easiest ways to lose money in real estate. And then I have the actual easiest way to lose money in real estate. The next one is not shopping around. I've talked about it a few times. I'm a lazy person. I don't want to be a lazy investor. I want to invest in such a way that lets me live a lazy life. There's a difference. We shop around for contractors. I use the Thumbtack app. It's a good way to find contractors, get quotes, read reviews. If I'm going to add a deck, I want at least 3 quotes, right? How much is the materials that they're going to source? How much is the labor? 3 quotes to figure out which is the best one. Doesn't always mean it's the cheapest one. It's just going to be the one that makes the most sense for that project. Most people understand that. Hardly anybody shops at least 3 real estate agents. Not only did I talk to many more than 3 agents to find the ones I work with, but I work with 3 at all times. 3 agents or more with auto searches set up. They're all aware of each other. They know that whichever person sends me the actual deal I want to pursue is going to be the one who gets the work. Most people won't take the time to compare rates and fees and terms with at least 3 lenders. We'll take the time to talk to 3 contractors for a $5,000 deck, but we don't want to send the 5 to 10 emails it takes to get 3 quotes for a 30-year commitment for hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can easily lose money in real estate if you don't shop around. Which includes shopping around for tenants. One of the mistakes we make as a new investor, especially, is when we have a vacant unit, we want to fill it. We're missing a couple words there. We want to fill it with a good, reliable tenant. We don't just want to fill it. If you don't learn how to screen your tenants properly and find a good lease and shop tenants, figure out which platform finds you the best tenants in your area. That could be Facebook Marketplace. Could be Craigslist. Could be I have the best luck in my area with apartments.com. Whichever one works the best in your area that has the most eyes on properties is the one you're going to want to learn to use. One of the ways that we lose money in real estate is forcing a strategy. We decide, I want to buy single family houses. I want to buy small multifamily. I want to buy storage. I want to BRRRR. I want to whatever your strategy is, you've picked it. You pick your market, you pick your strategy, and then you go there and you make it work. That's like a police officer showing up at a crime scene and looking at all of the evidence and thinking, I think this happened. This is what I think happened. Now let me find the evidence to back that up. And that's not how a police officer does it. You show up at a crime scene, you look at all the evidence, you let the evidence tell you a story, you make an assumption, literally an assumption, that's an investigation of what the evidence tells you. And you change your assumption when you find evidence that points out something else. Real estate investing is the same way. You look at your market, you look at the evidence in your market. Which one's cash flow? Single family, like in the Ohio area where my friend invests, or small multifamily where I invest in Washington? Or is it storage? Is it Airbnb? What strategy is working best in that market that gets you the return you're looking for? And then, because somebody is investing successfully in almost every market, even the super expensive, high cost of living areas, somebody's pulling it off. Sometimes it's that area is so high, they're investing at a distance. That's a possibility. But what strategy is working? And then change your assumption based on the evidence that you see. And before I wrap up and get to the questions and the howdies, I'm going to drink some vodka first, which obviously is Mountain Dew. They just don't sponsor my channel, so I take the label off. See how long the voice lasts. The easiest way to lose money in real estate is to lose money in real estate. That is me channeling my inner Mitch Hedberg. Some people will say, I'm going to buy this property. I don't care that it loses money because there's principal paid on every month. Rents are going to go up. It's going to appreciate massively over time. I'm going to buy land and just hold it for 20 years, pay taxes on it, and hope that things develop in the area. The easiest way to lose money in real estate is to lose money in real estate. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time says it's great. Says it really well. He says, I want you to buy great deals. Learn average, find the good or great deals and go for great. I think learn the area average and go for good or great deals because a base hit is acceptable to me. Enough base hits in a row, and you're going to see a really huge change to your life. Once you have cash flow and you've replaced work and you've learned the basics, step your game up. Stop going for good, go for great. But don't plan on losing money, or that's as simple as that one gets. The reason it's going to seem like that's a good option is you're going to hear about people who lost money over time. They literally lost money every month, but then sold the property for 2 or 3 million more than what they bought it for. Some investors grow a portfolio to the point where it's large enough to take $5 or $10 or $50,000 to Vegas, put it all on black, or red, whatever. Just see what happens. If they win, great, it's a good night. If they lose, it isn't going to hurt them. They have the cash flow and assets and position to where that was an acceptable loss. So they might go and take 1 or 5% of their net worth and put it in crypto or in a specific stock that they haven't even studied that. They just think, I think that company is going to grow, so I'm going to put it all in there. They haven't studied which coin is performing the best. They haven't looked at the history of the coin. They haven't studied how blockchain works. They haven't done anything. But they can risk throwing that 1 to 5% there. So if you heard about somebody who purchased a property banking on appreciation and they won, because they're not going to talk about the times they lost, look at their whole picture. What does the rest of their portfolio look like? What risk was that to them? But when you're starting out, and it took me 2 years to save the first down payment for my first house hack, if I took that $20,000 and I put it on a property where I was hoping, and I don't want to get caught living on hopium, hoping for appreciation, I'd probably still have to work. And to quote my friend Cody, that's no fun. So let me go here to the top and hopefully people can get questions in. And I haven't been on mute this whole time, which I have actually done before. So let's see how this goes. If I can get my chat to open. Tom Kine, howdy, and hi community. Kenny A, howdy, good evening. Longtime follower. And just so everybody knows, if you're here, I know you can see the comments. I read every comment because when I watch YouTube, I usually have the app closed and I'm just listening. So somebody watching in the future, I want them to be able to hear exactly the questions that I'm responding to. New investor closed on a duplex last week, 21K below asking. Newer truck driver, only been driving about 18 months. Definitely has been life-changing money home nightly. Awesome. Congratulations. Welcome to transportation. I mentioned it earlier. That's what I do. I teach truck driving at a truck driving school. I was actually out this weekend with a friend practicing just before his last test, just his last drive before his test. And so 18 months, enough consistent income to qualify for a loan to buy a duplex. Congratulations on the duplex. Update me on how that goes. Damien, howdy. When you have a tenant sign one of your leases after the binder strategy, does the new lease void out the old one, or do you still have to wait until the original lease expires? Thanks. That's a good question. From what I know, this applies in every area. There may be some areas, I've just never heard of them, where this doesn't apply. The lease is between tenant and property. Who owns it is irrelevant. So the terms of that lease follow end to the end. So if somebody has 5, 6, or 7 months left on their lease when I purchase the property, I usually wait 2 months to use the binder, even if they're month to month. And if you're new to my channel, the binder strategy is a strategy that gets tenants to actually request a rent increase and longer leases. It's one of the reasons why I've wanted to make a channel. I figured out a way to get tenants to request a rent increase and be happy in the end of the meeting. And I thought that is information people are going to want to learn. So if they have, let's say, 7 months left on their lease, if I went in at 2 months, I still have 5 months remaining. I can't make changes. I can't force changes to their lease. You can offer cash for keys, ask them to move. You can ask them to move. You can ask anything you want, but you can't force a change. So if they had 7 months remaining in Washington State for a rent increase, you're required to give a 60-day notice. It's weird. You have to give 20-day notice that you're going to move out. You have to give 60-day notice to do it. And it's probably a percentage, like 10% or more. I'm not sure. I would do it for 1%, but you want to give 60-day notice. So if they had 7 months remaining, I would not do the binder strategy until just before the 5th month. I want to make sure I have at least 60 days left so that we can have at least about a week to talk about the binder, give them some time to think. Sometimes I've done that where they go back and they come back at me the next day with an amount they're going to pay or they're asking to pay. Then we agree on the new price, and then I don't point out to the tenants that there is a 60-day requirement for us to make a rent increase. We have decided on the new rent. And then as just a moment to sit back, I say, okay, great. So we've decided on the new rent. Next month stays the same. The month after that stays the same. That 3rd month, that's when we'll start the new price. Some tenants may know that you have to give a 60-day notice, but most of my tenants have thought, wow, we agreed on a new price. It could have started next month, but Dion said, we'll give you 3 months to get ready to this new price. Helps keep the relationship positive. Con, howdy. Chester Williams, howdy. Good afternoon, good evening. Janielle, howdy. Dale, howdy. Chester, that video is a must-watch for newbie investors. The first 5, most recent 5 years. Thank you. I hope people get a chance to check it out. I think most of us have kind of the same problems in the first 5 years. Uncertainty. We don't know that things are actually going to work out. Even if you're listening to somebody who's done it, you don't have that 100%, I know how it's going to go. If someone like me were to lose everything and start over, I know what the first 5 years would be like. I know exactly how many years it would take to save up down payments, take action and get to where I want it to be. And then when you hear what the last 5 years is like, it's good to know that we don't have to be frugal our entire lives. And I'm going to do something really weird. No, I'm not going to. I have an employee with a family problem So I have to text. I know that's not good for video, but I have to make sure that he knows I would answer in this case. Sorry. So if you get a chance to check out that video on the first year, 5 years and last 5 years, let me know what you think. Janet, howdy. How are you? I am almost marvelous. You're from LA. Cool. Alex, howdy. CJ Underwood, good evening. Howdy. Fellow amigos. Hola amigos, ¿cómo están ustedes? I always liked the Audible books when you're trying to learn another language. There's like this really soft, cheesy hello. And then there's this Spanish hola. Like it's just totally different how they project. Sorry. Julie Anderson, howdy. Got your vodka work done, ready to learn. Cool. Awesome. Pallavi, howdy. Oops. I'm late again. Sometimes people show up a little bit late and they put the video on like 1.5 or 2 speed and then they catch up with the video. Good evening. And then John W. pulled a message back to make me wonder all night long and lose sleep. Kip, howdy. What is your opinion on St. Pete, Clearwater area, moving from California to Largo, Florida in a couple of weeks? I wish I knew. I'm sorry, I don't know enough of the areas. So to Largo, Florida. So you're moving to Florida. I know there's a large influx of people there. I have 2 friends that are investing there. I don't know if that's even in that area. They're on the Cape Coral and Matsky Finance. He actually lives in Cape Coral in that area. He'd be a channel to check out. Mark Matsky of Matsky Finance. It's a smaller channel, but he's got really good information, and he might actually know more about Florida. You could probably reach out to him in person. Send a message, and he might be able to answer some questions. Let me see if I could spell, because it's a tricky one. No, of course I don't have it saved. Yeah, I forgot how to spell his name. Dang it. Because he's a great channel. Perfect for your answers there. I will find out. Email me and I will send it to you. Moon, howdy. Cheers. When are you going to set up a VR meetup? That's a good idea. I was actually playing VR this morning. You can probably tell I was at work all day today, working very hard. New game out called Zenith. And if you want to work out, there's one of the ways to play it that's a pretty good workout. Andrew, howdy. It's packing day for us. Good luck. Drive safe. John W., howdy. Do you have to get a rental certificate for your rentals in your area? Each city's different. I have one city that I will never invest in again. And if you want to know why, ask me in the comments and I will cover it because it's an irritating story. But that city makes you pay $12 a year for a rental cert for properties that are rentals. Not everybody does it, but the city does require it. So if they catch you, they make you do it. And then they inspect your property. And they send somebody who has no clue what they're doing to inspect your property. But my other ones, no, there's no requirement. So a lot of that might depend on being inside or outside of city limits. And some counties might not care, but some municipalities might. Because if you've met the government, there is always a fee. I got a fee the other day for $1,000 where some water district wants to inspect my well. So that sucks that the tenants are going to be paying that fee. Chanel, do you recommend using the 40-year loan interest only product right now? So I don't know your situation and what your goals are. If in any way you think you're going to sell a property in the next 20 years, no. I don't think the principal pay down is factored in enough. I know that a lot of people that don't want people to take the 40-year loan product are worried about you're not getting any principal pay down. Principal pay down is a fraction of my net worth. It's probably in 10 years less than $300,000. Net worth is a little over, if I literally sold everything, paid taxes, paid agent fees, 2.1 something million from a guy who was making $17 an hour and $89,000 in bad debt 10 years ago. That's a huge change. It came from appreciation and recycling cash flow. I have not tapped equity. I have not sold any properties. So I will use the 40-year loan product. I'm reaching out and I'm going to see if how the payments look and what the payments look like in 10 years. If it's 40-year fixed rate, I'm going to refinance at least 2 of my duplexes into that, because I don't plan on ever selling and I don't plan on tapping equity. So I don't care if there's principal pay down. I don't care if there's appreciation. When I say things like, oh, my net worth is blah, 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 fictitious number that means nothing. It costs me this much to live every month. There's this much cash flow coming in. That matters to me. Making work optional was my goal. So if your goal is work optional and you're not going to sell and you have confidence that you're not going to sell, I would go for the 40-year product. This is not financial advice. This is for entertainment value only. Not sure why everybody says that, but everybody on YouTube does say it. So don't sue me, bro. If I was going to sell in 20 years, I would not go for a 40-year interest only 10-year loan product. And if anybody hasn't seen this, there's a Conway, I think it's either Conway or Convoy, because there's trucking companies with the same name, so it screws me up. 10 years interest only, then a 30-year amortized loan. So it's fixed rate for 40 years. I like it because I'm focused on cash flow. So the lower the payment, the better. I don't care if a mortgage is ever paid off. I would take a 1,000-year mortgage, because mort means mort, like death, mortgage, until death. I'm keeping my properties until I die. Don't plan on taking any of the equity out to even recycle it. My goal is to not to grow a big portfolio of massive units. My goal is to have cash flow so that I can live the life that I want to. So hopefully that answered for you. Cody, howdy. Andrew, we closed at 410K. This zeroes out all our debt and gives us 100K to invest. Going to find a small multifamily to move into within the next 3 months, and a single family deal lined up for traveling nurses. Awesome. That is a good plan. Let me know how it goes. And then my chat moved. Sorry. Rankin. Howdy. Rankin Projects. Rob. Howdy. Please donate to GoFundMe and make a donation to a fund, the Send Lumberjack Rice Krispies Fund. I don't think he needs the money. I think he needs some drivers to bring him some Rice Krispies. And hopefully everybody is boycotting GoFundMe for whatever reason. Don't care if you're on this side of the argument or that side of the argument. The fund channeler should not care one way or the other. If they support one side or the other, they should be neutral. Larry H. Howdy. Patty Romero. Howdy. Hi, Dion. Unfortunately, I have used my 401k and took out a HELOC from my main house, but I own 2 rentals now. Which one of them is paid in full? Do you think that was a bad decision? No. So I'm going to ask you some questions, Patty, and you can put it in the chat down further. So you own 2 rentals. Are you losing money every month? If you sold, would you owe money? So no, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it's not the best idea to start with for most people. It's when we make our biggest mistakes. So if you're losing money every month, and if you tried to walk away, you would owe money, then it was a bad call, right? You put your home at risk and you put your retirement account at risk. But if you did the work to find the rentals that are cash flowing, that you are not underwater on, then no. So it's not a bad idea to do that. I said it's a bad idea to start with that as a strategy. Doesn't mean it doesn't work out. I suggest not doing the BRRRR until you've done several properties and have several buy and hold properties with cash flow to support your mistakes. But there are people who start the BRRRR method day one and kill it, right? So that doesn't mean it doesn't work and it's not a good idea. That your level of confidence is a factor too. Subi, howdy, good evening. If you want to change a den into a bedroom, what do you have to do? I am purchasing a 2-bedroom, 1 den, and I am going to turn the den into a bedroom. What is required? Again, this goes back to each municipality is different. I've done it on properties that are in the county. I went into the county and they said, we don't care. There was nothing to do. They were just didn't care. If I was in one of my cities where I have properties, they would want the permits, they would want it registered, they would want to make sure the septic supported that number. So check your local municipality for what is required. I know that if you want to rent to Section 8 for a room to be considered a bedroom, it has to have 2 ways in and out, 2 forms of egress, can be a door and a window or 2 doors. in my area, it has to have a source of heat. In some areas, it could have to have a source of cool. It has to have a light, power source. So and a closet, and I believe 100 square feet. So check locally for what the room requirements are to call it a bedroom if you're going to rent to something like Section 8. If you're going to do any work like that, I recommend getting the permits. Just be above board. Yes, it'll cost time and some money, but that way you don't have to live in fear that a tenant is smarter than us. A tenant figured out this permits weren't pulled, and then a tenant goes to the city or the county and says, this is non-conforming, and whatever the rules are can kick in. So some places will require the permits and to record it with the county that there's been a change, because you're adding value to the property. Property taxes are based on value. That was actually one of the things that I had in my notes to talk about on one of the ways to lose money in real estate was not paying attention to property taxes. A lot of people look at the MLS or the listing and they say property taxes says it's $2,000. Well, that $2,000 has been the last time it was sold and then slowly incrementally increased by the county tax assessor over the years. You do a purchase which sets a new factual value for the assessor to base the new taxes on. So we want to learn how our county factors taxes. Is it 0.5% of value, 1%, 1.5? What percent of the value? Look at your purchase price and then calculate what your taxes are going to be the next quarter after the sale goes through. Chester, BP books for self-education. Yeah, there's some really good ones. I have a stack of the BP books over there. It's one of the things that BiggerPockets kind of morphed from information for new investors to a big channel where they bring in, experienced investors, and now they're a publishing house. So most of their stuff is putting out books. They still have the Real Estate Rookie Show, which is for new investors. Generally, the people that are on there have done 10 or less deals. So for the newer investor, great content. Their books are good too, because you can actually pick the book that fits the strategy you're trying to grow. Chester, yes, shopping around is the way to get an understanding similar to area average rents, a reasonable estimate for a particular job or mortgage. Absolutely. My family, my two brothers and my dad each had a tree service. So you figured I would know how to estimate. I estimated trees after getting out of the Marines for a while. I had a tree done about 4 years ago, a cherry tree taken out. It was starting to damage the building. I had quotes from $700 to $3,300, 4 different quotes, and they branched it, pun intended. They were all the way from $700 to $3,300. Definitely worth taking the time to figure out. Chester, Dion, this first 30 minutes are gold. It might be worth considering making this its own separate video. So I'm working on that, Chester. I think the first 10 to 30 minutes of my videos that I do a topic cover like that, I'm trying to figure out how to, because it's a live stream. This is on YouTube. It's not on my computer. When I record a video, I can then put it into, I use iMovie to edit. I can put it into iMovie and then put it where I want it. So I'm working on that, and I'm going to do it with pretty much every live stream. Make a watch to the point where now we get to the hellos, and then I'll just make separate videos. Because I know that there's a lot of people. I have some friends who watch the channel that are getting into investing. One who's retiring in 27 weeks based on what he learned from investing in real estate. But he says, oh man, I see that 3 hours and there's no way I'm going to watch that. So it turns off some people. It doesn't get some views. So if I take out the first X number of minutes, that might actually get some more eyes on it, which would be good for the people that could benefit from that. Thank you. Chester, I'd say more a hypothesis than an assumption based on the evidence so you can test it. Sure. Yeah, there's probably a more accurate word. I like to use assumption because most people say don't make an assumption because you make an ass out of you, an assumption. So, Janet, I already bought Michael Zuber's books. What other books do you recommend for self-education? I don't think it would fit in the chat, but I can read it really quick. Here is what I recommend to people who are reaching financial freedom. If I can find it. Let me search really quick. Nope. So I've suggested to people I've helped reach FI, read or listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is right here on my desk. I showed it earlier. Cash Flow Quadrant. Those are the two main Robert Kiyosaki books that I think everybody in real estate should at least listen to once. Rich Dad Poor Dad, some people don't like it. It's not too, it doesn't have any steps. Like, don't do these things. It doesn't have action items, but it has the mindset of really understanding the difference between asset and liabilities. Cash Flow Quadrant, if you don't understand those four sectors of tax, it's a little harder to be motivated to become an investor. But when you realize an employee pays 40% in taxes, a self-employed person, I was at the dentist this morning and broke a tooth last week. Long, short story. And I was looking at the dentist. I used to think dentists were so rich. I thought, she makes so much money. I used to, as a truck driver, I was thinking, man, I'd really like a dentist paycheck. I don't want to go through school and take all the time and energy it takes to become a dentist. I probably don't want to work in people's mouths all the time, but I would like the paycheck. Definitely wouldn't want the upkeep of running that business. I wouldn't want the taxes that person has to pay. Self-employed taxes are more than an employee's tax. And I wouldn't want the student loan debt that came with it. And then people who run businesses are only paying. So employees are 40%, self-employed are 60%. Business people pay that capital gains tax of 20%, and then investors pay 0. 10 years of investing, 6 figures in profit for the last 2 years straight, and it grew up to that point. I have never paid a penny in rental income profit. Then I would read Richest Man in Babylon, Think and Grow Rich. Those are the ones I recommend. And then I tell everybody to binge BiggerPockets, Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin, as long as it's older than 2 years. Afford Anything, Paula Pant, is amazing. Active Duty Passive Income is a really good podcast. Even if you've never been in the military, their information can help almost everybody. One rental at a time, of course. Michael Zuber, Matt the Lumberjack Landlord. And the one I like the most that is in the kind of in the Graham Stephan, Meet Kevin genre is Minority Mindset. He's about the same age. He started in real estate just like they did, but he hasn't turned into, I'm so big on YouTube, I need to do reacting videos, or I'm going to talk stimulus, or I'm going to run for governor. He is still talking basics on how money works. That's my recommendation on books and podcasts. Carlos, howdy. What are the first 3 books you should read that you want to be a real estate investor? There you go. So that's where I would focus. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon. And what's really cool is Think and Grow Rich and Richest Man in Babylon are got to be 100 years old now, and the thoughts, like the concepts, still work. Carlos, howdy. I got that. North Colorado Dawn, howdy. Glad you made it. Robert Kimes, howdy. I've been looking into my first house hack. Is it acceptable to cash flow negative if the property will meet the 10% cash on cards? Yeah, that's exactly how I do it. So let me finish reading it. Is it acceptable to cash flow negative if the property will meet the 10% cash on cash if both sides were rented? That is exactly what my first duplex looked like. When I moved in, I was paying about $300 a month to live there. It was a negative cash flow property. One side was rented out. I lived in the other. When I moved out, it profited $800 a month. Cost me like $74,000 to buy. So simple math. It's a little bit better than it. It was like a 10.001% cash on cash return. Absolutely made it worth buying. Rents have changed. It's cash flowing better now. So absolutely. If with a triplex or fourplex, I don't know. It should cash flow. My fourplex cash flowed the day I moved in. It was like $1,700 a month to get paid to live there. Now it's like $2,500 a month from one property to live in that property. People should buy rentals. Yeah. And then I lost where I was at. Okay, there we go. Jania, what soft skills are needed to be a successful real estate investing? I don't know that you need soft skills as much as you need to know your limits. I have pretty decent people skills. I am, and write this down because this is actual factual information. I am the biggest introvert I think any of us have ever met. But I have people skills. I'm pretty good at dealing with people. And one of the reasons I went into law enforcement, I mean, I have the ability to de-escalate a situation and the ability to relate to somebody. Like one of the reasons I got assigned as a drug court officer was I could help people. But I wanted to be a police officer because it keeps a gun and a badge between you and everybody else. And I want to make YouTube content because it keeps a camera between all of us. And the live meetups are like once a month. I can handle that. That's enough people for me. So if you have good people skills and you have the backbone to stick to a lease, I would self-manage. It's one of the reasons I do. It's very easy for me to communicate with tenants and make both sides happy. If I didn't have that, I would have a property manager. I have an attorney on retainer, so if I ever have to go through an eviction and I know, okay, I've reached roadhouse rules, I will always be nice, right? That's the roadhouse rules. You always be nice until it's time to not be nice. And when it's time to not be nice, I have a violent personality, so I wouldn't want to be involved in the situation at all. Here's the attorney. Everything's handled officially and legally, right? So know your limits. When things are going good, I'm the person I want communicating. When things are going bad, I don't want to be involved in that situation because the cops would come and arrest me. So if you want to be good at anything, I think any type of job, people always underestimate learning sales. Read or listen to How to Win Friends and Influence People, because you are selling yourself at work. You are convincing your boss to not fire you. You're dealing with customers. You're convincing your coworkers not to hate your guts, even though you don't want to be there. Whatever your story is at your job, we're selling ourselves all the time. If you're going to be in real estate, I sell myself to my agents. I say things like, I don't want to negotiate your commission down. I actually want you to make a profit. Then my agents bring me more deals, right? So that's a type of sales. So I would learn some way. Don't become a salesperson. You don't have to do that, but learn sales. If you watch Chandler David Smith's channel, his channel is much larger. I think he broke 100,000 subscribers last year. But that's what he does. He runs a company where he sells, I think it's pest control. And his first summer, he broke the company record. He was planning on making 25,000. He made 90,000 in the summer. And then he's killing it in real estate. So the more salesmanship you learn and know, the better you'll do. But that doesn't mean you're selling something all the time. Mike A. Howdy. Janet, what video, Chester, you can tell me? It's on my channel. It came out Saturday, and it's called The First 5 Years versus the Last 5 Years. And it's the three amigos talking about the things we went through in the first 5 years and what things look like now. Laura, howdy. Hi all, good evening. Thanks for hanging out with us. Mike A, finally caught one live. Awesome. Cody, Dion, after your first year, did you hit your desired return on all your properties? If not, what was the reason? Did any of them ever not hit the my single family? When I rented out the first year, I lost money. I did everything wrong. I rented to a friend without a lease. He moved out, rented the house to someone else, kept the rent, it just wasn't running it like a business, did everything wrong. So if I take that one out, the properties that I've purchased as investments, the first year of my house hacks, actually the fourplex hit my 10% while I was living there. The duplex didn't, because it was I was spending $300 a month to live there, but that was my housing expense too. So the first house hack probably didn't hit the 10% cash on cash return, but every other one has since. I purchased one where I expected about an 8.9% cash on cash return. It was just, it's in the right area and had every other factor with that one was so good. I was like, oh, I'll take a little bit. It ended up hitting above a 10 because we run the math thinking, I prefer to buy rent ready or already occupied property. So there's already tenants living in there, right? So I'm going to collect prorated rents for the month we close. And I'm going to collect rents for the month after the month we close, but not have a mortgage payment. So when I moved into my fourplex, January 6th, we close. I get the rents for January 6th to the end of February. I get the rents from February to March. And in the middle of March, I offered $1,000 to a tenant that was moving out because I was doing owner occupied, did cash for keys. And then so March 1st was my first payment and I got the third basically month's rent of income there. So through that first year, it was better than a 10% cash on cash return. We don't calculate that gap month because you can never guarantee when you're going to close. And if you closed on like the 31st, you have just 1 month and not some proration from the first month. But yes, I had one that surprised me. When I first bought the triplex, I expected like a 10 to 11%, and the first year was 17. Not going to complain. Yeah. North Colorado Dawn. Do you think it would take you 5 years to get your feet back under you with what you know now? Work optional? Yes, I think so. Like I've said this before, I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't want to run a business. I don't want to be my own boss because I don't want everybody with a Yelp account that's my customer to be my boss. I would find a driving job. If I lost everything, I would find a driving job, 2 years consistent income while I was saving the down payment to get the first house hack. And then I'd have a job that paid about 105, 110,000 a year to start as a local truck driver. So then it would probably be one every year. So at the 5-year mark, I would have 4 properties. Pretty much spelled out exactly, because I'm not starting from 89,000 in bad debt, and I'm not starting from only making $17 an hour. So yeah, 5 years to get where I am, in the 8-year mark, probably that's about how long it would have taken. So I think that's a good safe bet. Most people overestimate what we can do in 1 year and underestimate what we can do in 5. And that's like a Bill Gates quote or something. So, Lewis, howdy. Florida is bursting at the seams everywhere. Absolutely. So, which is not a bad thing when it comes to wanting rental demand. Chester, it's a video where Michael Zuber, Dion, and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord all discuss what their first 5 years of investing was like and what the most recent 5 years was like. Chester Dean, I'm guessing it's Seattle, King County. Guess you're definitely not investing on McNeeley Street. Yes, I am not. No. So I would never invest in Seattle, and I don't want to invest in King County. Near Tacoma, I do not invest near McKinley Street. That's the war zone where I can't safely go with armed escort to collect rent. So I wouldn't have a property manager do it. The town is Lakewood, Washington. If I could flip them off right now and on camera and get away with it, I absolutely would. They sent an inspector to the house who was 19 with no education or training whatsoever about being an inspector, who walked through the property, made me and a tenant change out a light switch cover because it was a Disney princess light switch cover that didn't match the other ones. And it has to be uniform. Did you know that? Your whole building can burn down if your covers aren't uniform. Yeah, not nice things. Cody, yes, it's on Dion's channel. Con, I think I should send that video to Mike to put it on his channel, because that was a really good video, and I think more people can benefit if they watch it on his too, because he's got 3 times the subscribers, like literally exactly. Con, I can't find any good duplex in my area, Sarasota, Florida. Would you recommend investing an hour away? The properties are much newer and the costs are lower. I am within an hour of wherever I live, both house hacks. All my properties are within an hour. I would drive an hour and a half probably. I wouldn't want to go more than an hour and a half, because that's a 3-hour turnaround for a problem, and it makes any problem a whole day event. And you have travel time when you pay handyman, unless you find one in that area. There's an hour, absolutely. I would also add to your search in your area, if you're not having any good luck finding duplexes, look for single family house. And then there's different colloquialisms that are used in each area. You might have an ADU, a DADU, granny flat, mother-in-law house. Figure out what in your area they're actually calling 2 houses on one property, because the numbers work just like a duplex. But the added benefit is it runs on single family lending. So you can even do conventional at 5% down. Most investors forget to look for that asset because they look for small multifamily. Most home buyers don't want that asset because they're not looking for 2 houses and don't want tenants. So add house with an auxiliary dwelling unit or detached auxiliary dwelling unit, granny flat, mother-in-law house to your search, and maybe and look at that circle of an hour in all directions and see what you find. North Colorado Dawn, how is the cash flow? Asking Colin. Mike A, can anyone point me to videos about how Dion recycles cash? I need to make it. The very first video on my channel, from $89,000 in debt to financial freedom, would spell it out, because I've never recycled capital. I recycle cash. So capital is when you take out a home equity line of credit or cash out refinance, or you sell a property and you take the appreciation and principal pay down, which is capital, and you roll it into another property, usually with a 1031 exchange to avoid taxes. Unless you live there 2 out of the last 5 years, then you can go up to 250,000 in capital gains without paying taxes on it, 500 if you're married. So there's all kinds of ways to take money from an asset that has grown in value and put it to work in another asset that performs better and increases your net worth, cash flow, all that kind of stuff. Lazy. Don't have the goal of having 100 units. I mean, at some point, I'm probably just going to take my units and stop buying and just start paying off mortgages. Not because it makes sense, not just because I don't want more people to take care of, more properties to take care of. I want less responsibility, increased cash flow. Definitely not doing that before I get to 10 mortgages. But someday I will do that, but not today. So that very first video, we'll talk about that. I took the increased cash flow. As properties produced income, I did not increase my cost of living. In the first 4 to 6 years, I didn't go out and get the nice big jacked up truck. I didn't get the Corvette. I didn't take the trip to Colombia or Thailand until the next 4 years. Every penny that came in was added to the investing fund. So from moving out of the house into the apartment to save the down payment, 2 years. From first duplex purchase as a house hack to next duplex, 2 years. Then the cash flow from house, other unit, other duplex starts to add up. So the next purchase was a little less than 2 years, and then paid off a mortgage in a year, and then purchased a fourplex in a year. So it starts to happen a lot faster. That's me recycling cash. Is that worth a video? Let me know. Chester Williams. People say that phrase so that people can't rely on the advice as though it's expert advice because of the legal principles of detrimental reliance. Self-evident phrase. Nice. I think you and Matt, the lumberjack landlord, should have a conversation sometimes. I like to hear two people who are smarter than me have a conversation and see if I can keep up. Then my chat moved. Sorry. Okay. North Colorado Dawn. Exactly with the GoFundMe talk. Damien. Howdy. What's the name of the company that offers the 40-year mortgage? It's on Michael Zuber's channel. They've been on there a couple times, and it's either Conway or Convoy or something like that. But there are 2 transportation companies with the same name, so I would have to look. Ben Tipton. Cheers. Howdy. Alan W. Howdy. Howdy doody. Do you utilize an umbrella policy to lower your insurance costs on your rentals? Closing on a fourplex next week, and $500,000 liability would save me versus $1 million, and I can use my umbrella to cover. No, I don't. So each property should have property insurance, because one of the things your umbrella policy holder might say is, have you tapped the insurance on the asset? The umbrella policy kicks in when the suit exceeds reasonable insurance, and your lender is going to require, if you have a mortgage, is going to require it on the property anyways. The umbrella doesn't count for that, because an umbrella doesn't generally do rebuild value. It covers the expense of a lawsuit that exceeds the insurance that's on the property. So I have property insurance on each property. I probably should have done it when I got to 3, but when I got to 4 properties, I purchased the umbrella policy. So it's in addition to property insurance. And I still need to make, man, I'm lazy. I still need to make the video on insurance, because everyone overcomplicates insurance. You just want property insurance. If you live there, it's going to cost more because they insure your personal stuff. But if you move out, your insurance rate's going to go down because it's just property insurance. I know everybody who works in the industry will say, well, it costs more if you don't live there. Right. But it might cost more than what they're insuring where I live, except where I live, my personal stuff makes the rate cost more to me. So I'm writing a bigger check. So don't argue with me. It costs more where you live. And then the umbrella is an additional protection on top of property insurance. I would not use it as a replacement for property insurance. And then I waited till 4 because I wanted the cash flow to cover. It's $550 a year for $2 million in coverage with the insurance company that I had. I think it just went up a little. I have to check, but it wasn't much. Chester, here it's an astronomical 1.29% for county property tax assessment. See, so knowing the percentage, you can look and say the property taxes are this, but the new sale, 1.29% of that sale price is going to be what my taxes are next year, and run that in your calculations. I'm going to read it like this. I'm not sure how you say it, but R.E. Dion. Howdy. What's a process that a software platform has not solved for you yet? Dating. So, collecting rents, I haven't found one that's easy for tenants. If you have class A and B properties, it's pretty easy to tell your tenants, hey, you're going to use this platform, because most people in an A or B rental have a checking account. I have tenants that are using MoneyGram, cashier's checks. Like, it costs them to pay the rent. I want to tell a couple of them, look, just bring me cash and save the fee. That'd be more energy and effort to meet up to do that. But so one tried to use Chime, but Chime requires your actual login to your banking info. You like give Chime full access to your accounts. And if you have a couple $100,000 sitting in an account waiting for the next property, you might not feel comfortable with saying, hey, random app that someone just introduced to me yesterday, let me give you access to all of my funds. So I collect rents with, PayPal, Zelle, ACH, all the things where I had to make an account and tie it to an account, but I didn't have to give my bank logging info, like the actual name and password is what Chime wanted. So I think that's what I would want. I only have 16 rental units, so all of my expenses and income goes on an Excel spreadsheet. I wouldn't want something else. The time it would take to open something else would be more than the time and energy it takes to put it into the Excel, because I have a note section and it's all laid out and I could easily look at properties and compare to each other. So collecting rents would be the one thing I would want. A simple version that worked for people who don't always have bank accounts to work with. Chester. Only even hearing him 0.5 would be an absolute godsend for county property assessment. So yes, when it comes to buying, knowing your expenses can be less, it's a little easier to buy, but then you increase the competition. I have never paid any property tax. My tenants do. The rents cover principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So this is what sucks. And there's a meme that goes around Facebook, and it's real douchey every time I see it. But it's all these people that say, we voted for property taxes to go up. Why did our rents increase? Who do you think is paying for my water treatment examination? Rents will cover that. Who do you think is going to pay for property taxes when they go up? Rents will cover that. People talk about, well, it's crazy. Rents are going up so much. Well, expenses are going up. And demand is up and supply is just not there. Rents in my area went up 20 to 40%. Taxes is a factor. North Colorado Dawn. Time flies when you are sharing ideas with like-minded people. Very true. Chester. Absolutely. First book is Rich Dad, Poor Dad, to have the mindset. Yes, I would probably listen to it. There are some people that say they didn't like it because, and he even says it in the book, and this is going to be probably in my book somewhere. Robert Kiyosaki is a best-selling author. He is not a best writing author. So typos, grammatical errors, all of that is going to be expected, but the information is what we're there for. Chester, I'd also recommend the audiobook for both Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. They're also on YouTube. So, I recommend getting YouTube Premium because I can't stand commercials. It's been over 10 years since I've watched a commercial. I don't have cable. I watch upgraded Hulu and Netflix and HBO and YouTube, all commercial free. I'm not a sports ball guy, so I didn't watch the Super Bowl or whatever was the other day. So I don't watch even the commercials that come out in that. I want to be in control of what I buy. I don't want somebody who's got an actual master's degree in marketing to show me things that I've never seen before, but now I know I just can't live without. Patty Romero, gracias. De nada. Chester, what I say is the difference in terms of risk. Employees have a guarantee, no uncertainty, paycheck in exchange for a higher taxes, while businesses, owners, investors bear the most risk, and their reward is high profits and little to no taxes. We have a tax incentive system, not a tax penalty program. We need affordable housing. Hey, look at all the tax benefits that you get with rentals. We need businesses to grow to employ people. Hey, business, look at this. We'll give Boeing 5 years tax free in Washington State as long as you produce this many jobs. When you have a company like Amazon that says we want to open a terminal here in New York, and a politician says, I'm going to fight that. We don't want you here because you're not paying taxes. And we were going to give you a $3 billion tax break. And the company says, all right, fine, we'll just pull out. We're not going to put an Amazon there. And then that politician says, so we can spend those $3 billion on somebody else. That's a politician with a economics degree. The $3 billion in taxes didn't exist. You were giving them a break so the company would come in and produce all of the jobs and pay the property taxes and have all the sales transaction happen to where all of the taxes would roll into there, and you'd get $3,000 off as an incentive for that business to be there. There is an incentive running a truck driving school to get tax write-offs. When we pay for fuel, that becomes a write-off. When we pay wages and taxes on wages, that becomes a write-off. Because they encourage the growth of the company. The bigger the CDL school is, the more people we can train to become drivers to help solve the driver shortage, which is companies trying to grow to deliver the products for us, but don't have the employees to do it. So those companies get tax incentives and only pay capital gains instead of earned income. So you're right. There is a reason why taxes are structured the way that they are. North Colorado Dawn. You are an ambivert, best of both worlds, introvert, extrovert. Yes, ambivert on camera. Chester, small aside. This is one of the reasons I lament the one-sided argument when Warren Buffett paying lower taxes than his salary. He pays way more cash in taxes and he pays way more in taxes and his investments have zero guarantee. So there's the risk and then there's the incentive. Think of all the people that Berkshire Hathaway employs. That exists because there was an incentive program for somebody to grow Berkshire Hathaway. That they will lose money, meaning any loss he takes, he simply loses that money. Maskey Finance, Kip, yes, absolutely. That's the one. Kind of a smaller channel, but he's in Florida, and he's got, his portfolio is bigger than mine. He is a retired police officer, so might have some good information for you. Damien. What do you think about Chandler David Smith's course, and when is your book coming out? Thanks. First, I'm a little over 10% in. I have to finish narrating this book. If you're not familiar with one rental at a time, I really suggest checking out Michael Zuber's channel. I think everybody who watches my content knows about Michael Zuber. He produced, created the first book, One Rental at a Time. And while it's a great book, I actually found it after I was investing for several years. And I thought, this is the strategies that I use. This is exactly what really would have helped me if I found this a few years ago. So I really try to promote it. I even mentioned it on my BiggerPockets episode. Like, that's the book I told everybody to get. The book is great. The Audible version, Audible used some robotic voice to narrate it, and I don't like it. So when Michael came out with his second book, 15 Conversations with Real Estate Millionaires, I offered to narrate it. And then I got the Rona and lost my voice for like a month and a half. I did videos. There are live streams where you could hear me talking like this. And then I turn off the camera and cough. I don't know why people would watch. I'm very sorry for everything that I put everyone through when I was losing my voice. But now my voice is pretty much back when I'm not in the middle of a live stream. So I'll be finishing that. That's going to happen before I write a book. I have my book outlined. I'm trying to figure out the best way to get the book out. Because we all learn in different formats. Some people learn visually. So I like to make the videos where I argue with myself because there's some comedy involved and it makes you watch. But a lot of people close the app and listen like I do. So I try to make content where you just have to listen. And it's really hard to watch a video where I argue with myself because those two characters sound a lot like each other. And some people learn by reading. They want a physical, actual book in their hand where they can flip through, or Kindle where they can flip pages. So I want to get there. Chandler David Smith's, and I lost where I was at, his course. I would want to know the price. So that would help me determine, because this should have been, hey, we're still in the middle of a channel on how to lose money with real estate. Paying for courses, like a $12,000 3-day weekend, is ridiculous. I don't care who's teaching. I don't care if you get to stay in Robert Kiyosaki's house for 3 days. You'd be better off taking $12,000 and throwing it as a down payment as a property and losing it all. What you learn in that experience of losing that $12,000 will teach you more than you're going to learn in a 3-day course. But there are courses like the BiggerPockets boot camps and Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time, How to Get Started One Rental at a Time, where you have BiggerPockets has thousands and thousands of hours of content. Michael Zuber has almost 6,000 videos on his channel. That's a mountain of information. Everything that's in the BiggerPockets bootcamp and everything that's in One Rental at a Time, How to Get Started, the course, all of that's available on their channels. You can watch the videos and get all of the information. You don't need to pay anything. But you're talking about thousands of hours to get the kernels, and sometimes in an hour and a half video, there's 3 or 4 takeaways. Or pay $300 or $400 and get that information in a chronological format, structured in lessons, where in the boot camp you have a teaching assistant for the BiggerPockets boot camp, so you get a live session with somebody. And Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time, you get the private Saturday where you ask questions and get answers. Those courses are worth it. If Chandler David Smith's course is $300 to $500, he's got a lot of videos out, he's got a lot of information, maybe. If it's upwards of $700 or more, not unless you, even then, if you get to stay at Chandler's house and hang out. So I have not done any research on Chandler's course. I do watch his content on his channel. Okay. Thank you. All your information. Thank you. Tom, Dion, the message I sent you on Facebook about YouTube video also discusses LLCs. Did you send me a message on here that I haven't seen? Oh, there it is. Okay. Good. I'll have to watch the episode. Should driving to New York. I'd like to ask your knowledge and capacity as a truck driving instructor and job placement about getting my own truck. I'm skeptical about all these lease programs, about ripping you guys off. Yeah, absolutely. I think maybe since it's your small business. Okay, I'll answer you this in a message so it's more private. Don't see the LLC thing. So it must be in the video. Well, it is because it's business lending versus personal finance. So I'll check that out. I'm getting there. What are we at now? 8,100 subscribers. When we get to 10,000, I will do my LLC rant and probably lose half the subscribers. Didn't you say you do umbrella versus policy versus LLC? Right. I have a list of reasons why I do not have an LLC. For rental properties, my truck driving school is in an LLC. My nonprofit's in an LLC. None of my rentals are. Pallavi, Convoy. Thank you for looking that up. Convoy is the company that does the 40-year, 10-year interest only, 30-year amortized loan product. North Colorado Dawn. I have a couple of tenants that just deposited their rent into my business bank account. So I could do that too. It's probably a solution for the tenant that has a problem because I use Bank of America for my rent stuff. I don't have any of my mortgages with them. But yeah, that's probably a solution too. Robert Kimes. There is a landlord near me that is selling off a lot of property. Seems like it could be a good opportunity for seller financing. What is a good resource to learn more on seller financing? In the One Rental at a Time course, there's actually a section for seller financing. I think I had a live stream on seller financing. I've got a letter that spells out the benefits to the owner that you might want. Email me. I'll put my email at the end of the chat and I'll send that letter to you because that letter will give you the talking points that you might want to bring up in conversation with the seller. All the ways that it benefits the seller and the ways the seller can protect themselves. That would be how I would do it. Chester, brilliant point. The tenant pays the taxes. I'm still thinking like a homeowner and looking at houses. Yep. And then Lance, howdy, pulled a message to mess with me and make me lose sleep. Cody. Robert Kimes, check out April Crosley or Jeff Stevens. Yeah, Racking Up Rentals, Jeff Stevens. So April Crosley is Lazy Girl REI, and Jeff Stevens is Racking Up Rentals. Both of them have done an episode on my channel, and I have been both on his podcast and on her channel. It was really fun with April. I don't think she had ever heard the binder strategy, so I did a video on her channel with the binder strategy, and it was great to watch an investor's face kind of realize there is a way to make a lot more money by just having a 10-minute conversation. That was fun. Con, North Colorado Dawn. Yes, I have to run the cash on cash return. I do have some work to do. Million, howdy. Only in this country, people like you and me can be financially freedom if we work on it. There's probably some other countries where people are pulling it off. This country does make it a little bit easier. There's a channel on YouTube here called A Canadian Investing in the United States. So there are people from other countries that even invest here to reach financial freedom. It's a lot easier once we do the research to even find out that it's possible. And it's like most of us live a certain amount of our life just never even thinking about finances. I made it to 40 without ever having $1,000 in the bank. Was a single parent with 3 kids. Thought, and I've said this sentence to my kids many times, and I'm probably going to apologize it for the rest of my life, but I told them over and over, I'm just one of those guys that's probably going to work until he dies. That was my plan. I thought 20 years Marine Corps, 20 years law enforcement, retire, 2 pensions, good to go. So Social Security might be there too, right? After Desert Storm, the Marine Corps downsized, lose the job. 2008, recession hits, get laid off from the police department, lose the job, no pensions. So I'm like 40 going, well, that didn't work. 8 years later, work's completely optional, and now my kids will inherit millions in property. It's like we wake up one day and say, oh, there must be a different way to do this. Con. Zillow, Redfin, Realtor do not have an option to search for ADU, DAD. Yep. So I would not be searching on any of those platforms. If you're searching on there, that's why you're not finding any duplexes. The duplexes are on the MLS and off within a day, and 2 or 3 months later, it shows up on Redfin or Zillow as a pending, already closed transaction. The only way I've been able to find any duplexes in my area for 10 years is at least 3 auto searches set up on the MLS by real estate agents. They all search differently. So even if I was an agent and had full access to the MLS, I would have 3 other agents with auto searches set up because I have my email. It is a copy and paste. I want this criteria in this market with this price range, send off. In 10 years, the agents that I've worked with probably 7 or 8 over the 10 years because they've rotated through. One time ever did the agent send me the same deal within a 24-hour period. That's how different searching is. And you have 2 hours to respond, not weeks or months. So I would get off of Redfin, Zillow, all of those. That's probably why I don't have any of them reaching out to ask me to sponsor them or sponsor my channel. That's how that works. But MLS, agents with an auto search. That's what I would do. Alan W. Following up, I wasn't using the umbrella for replacement costs, just to add on, absolutely. Yep, because I want at least $1 million liability, 500K more affordable, and they already have the umbrella. Yep. So I did, my properties all have 300,000. I call it slip fall, but it's injury coverage and then full replacement value, and then the umbrella policy. So yeah, that's what I would do, just like that. Tom, guys, the one rental at a time course is worth the money. I did it. I'm speaking from experience. I made the cash back and cash flow from first house. Awesome. That should be like on Michael's channel, like screenshot. Actually, I'm going to screenshot. Nah. Tom, let me know if I have permission to send that to Michael. I'm going to take a screenshot. If you don't, I will delete it. Okay. Damien, Chandler David Smith course is $299. So there you go. That might be, I haven't taken it, so I can't endorse it. I do endorse the guy, like his content, his channel. What if I should take the course and do a review? There's a thought. But $300 to get his information in course format, structured, if it's done right, that's a price that's worth it. $12,000, $10,000, $5,000? No. Julie, do you think that Craigslist shows higher prices for rentals than Rentometer? In my area, all of last year and the year before, that was absolutely true. It was hundreds of dollars off. In the last couple of months, Rentometer is a little closer. So like I said, switching from the 1-year historical data to 3 months historical data has been an improvement. Evan Grace. Howdy. Just finished up with a refinance. Should have done a cash out. Currently working on a home equity line of credit, but I'm concerned about rising interest rates with variable interest. Will use funds toward down payment. Would you stay away from doing this? Cash flow will probably be 5 times my home equity line of credit payment, but that could change drastically if interest rates shot up high. The only time I would take out a home equity line of credit is when I planned on paying it off quickly. So if you're going to 5x the payment and funnel that money to pay off the home equity line of credit over a year or two to get it paid off, and then that becomes cash flow, sure. But the adjustable rate is too big of a risk because interest rates can be 20% next week. Everyone says, oh, it's impossible. They wouldn't do it. Well, in the 70s, there was a massive jump. Adjustable rates, yes, you'd have some time to be ready, but then you'd have to have the cash flow to focus on it before that rate kicked in and had a huge impact. I don't think they're going to 20%. I actually have a dollar bet going with Michael Zuber and the Lumberjack Landlord that I think by the end of 2022, rates are going to be lower than 3.5% because the government fears deflation more than they fear inflation. Inflation helps the government. Doesn't help people stay in office, but it helps the government because the government is $30 trillion in debt. And anytime there's inflation, it's easier to pay off debt because it's easier to get dollars to pay off that debt. So they want inflation. But if there's an inkling of deflation, rates are going to drop. And everyone says, well, it can't go any lower except for the 5 countries that have negative interest rates. That's a possibility. I don't see them going negative, but I don't see them at the end of this year being above 3.5%. So yeah, I would kind of stay away from the home equity line of credit unless I had the ability to pay it off quickly. Mike A. Cash on cash return here in Texas at 10% is tough. Is it smart to focus here because it's local, or do you think going out of state is smart when it is a hot market? So 10% cash on cash return in my area makes sense because I can kind of find average deals that are 6 to 7, maybe 8%. So I shoot for 10. If average in your area is 3 or 4 or 5, maybe shoot for 7 or 8%. You're trying to get a great deal in your market, not a great deal in the country. And local debt tends to have some advantages that I like. I like to be able to self-manage or have direct interactions with property managers, be able to drive by the properties, be able to house hack, the things that come from one of the reasons why I invest locally. But the return isn't, I go for 10% because that's my minimum. If I studied the market here and average over the next 2 years dropped to 4 or 5%, I would start looking at those 8% deals. I just want better than what I could get on an average deal. Good or great deals. Don't know that I would look out of state. I would look at how you're running cash on cash. Are you using existing rents? If tenants are renting below area market, are you looking at just below area average rents if you think you're going to use the binder strategy? Yeah. And how are you finding your rents? Because area average rents have skyrocketed, and it's kind of an inchworm effect. Prices go up, rents follow. Prices go up, rents follow. We're in the rents follow stage right now. Chester, I must admit this network is absolutely amazing. I love watching us all gaining the wisdom of fire, not like Prometheus. The fire, financial independence, retire early. I like that you have a slash in it because it lets you know that you're not always going to be focused on the retire early. Some of us are not sure we're going to retire late. The financial independence was what mattered to me. Making work optional, taking away all the stress of thinking, I don't have to go to work tomorrow unless I want to. So that means I like the job. And if I get fired, instead of a 3-day weekend, it's a 3,000-day weekend. Because I might think about getting a job someday. Christopher Impey. Howdy. The pandemic was my there's another way moment. Yes. The biggest risk most of us take with our families is having one source of income. If we're relying on a job, there are all kinds of factors that can take it away. Factors that affect us, our health can change it. Where we need to live, health concerns of our family, the industry that we're in. There's not a lot of people doing some jobs that disappeared. I mean, they're literally jobs disappearing now. So spreading out your sources of income into things that can't be taken away so easily due to things outside of your control, definitely smart. Tom, absolutely, you have permission. Thank you. I will send that to him. North Colorado Dawn. Yesterday I received an email refinance that a duplex that I put a contract on Sunday was pending for 235. The agent didn't even let me know that another offer came in. I was upset, still am. Yeah, that would require an explanation and a reallocation of relationship status. Tom Kine, not fire, but fighter. Financial independence through real estate. There you go. I like that. Chester, North Colorado Dawn. It may be better to use a few real estate agents to look for listings for you. Tom Kine, I agree. I like it. Damien, do you buy down points on mortgages? How many points do you think a lender would allow you to buy down? Each lender is different, and it depends on your strategy. If you buy down the rate, it's going to lower your payment. How many months of that payment reduction would it take to quantify to be the same value as the buy down? And then add like 6 months or a year. I want to make sure my plan is not to sell a property in the amount of time that rate reduction would have actually cost me money. I want to make sure that I'm buying till death. So I always buy down the rates. I ask the lender each time, what's the most I can buy down the rate? And then I do the math to make sure. And I want, 3 to 7 years or so is the range that I would go. If it took longer than 7 years, I might not buy the rate down. Longevity. How long do you plan on having the property? That's what determines it. If you're going to own a property for 2 to 4 years, 3 years, I wouldn't buy down the rates. I would look at getting out of there, getting it down with the less money down and doing the sale. But if you're going to hold it longer than that, I buy down the rates. Building a bag. Howdy. Same. Kip. BiggerPockets have some great investment calculators. They do. Their pro membership has a lot of good benefits. You can try them out, I think, once or twice or 5 times or something for free. And then you have to have a membership from there on to do it. I like Chandler David Smith's rental calculator app. That's a really simple, free way to go, here's my payment, here's my mortgage, here's my interest, here's my terms. This is what I want for property management, CapEx. You put in all the data and it tells you basically what your payments are going to be, what your cash on cash return is, but it's not pretty. The BiggerPockets calculators make like pie charts where if you have a partner that you need to bring into the deal and show them, spouse or partner, business partner, like here's what it looks like. BiggerPockets is a far superior product, but it has a cost. And Chandler's is free and it works. So I've used both. Mike A, is there solid way to figure out what the average deal in the area are? Sorry if it's too newbie of a question, but is there a place to see how much a house sold for instead of just the list price? Yes. So that's where historical data comes from, and that is not a newbie question. That's actually a really good question. It means you know what to look for. Because if you don't know what the average is, how can you buy anything? It's like the people that say, I want to invest at a distance because right now people are getting a 10% return in Ohio. Well, the investors in Ohio are getting a 20 or 30% return. And the deal that everyone passed on that nobody local wanted is the agents are selling out to somebody who lives in Washington, right? So it sounds great to invest there, but you don't know the area, so you don't know what's an actual good deal. Those were made up numbers. So like at the end of a crime movie, these events are not representative of any factual or real people. Names were changed to protect the innocent. But time. Michael Zuber says it perfectly from one rental at a time. It takes 60 to 90 days to learn a market. You're going to look on the MLS. You're going to compare deals. You're going to see which ones went pending and sold. You can look at Redfin and Zillow for things that sold. You can actually look up property addresses on Redfin and Zillow, things that aren't even listed, to see when it was last sold, how much it sold for. All of that information is very easy to get, but it's going to take you 60 to 90 days to get a good feel for what an area average is. And that's one of the reasons why we want to have a footprint. I invest in 2 counties in Washington State. I am adding Idaho because our trucking company has a new campus there since November, and I'm actually leaving. I'm traveling there tomorrow, so I will be in Idaho for the next week. So, Brett, if you ever watch this, we should go grab dinner. Is there a local meetup in Twin Falls, Idaho, or real estate meetup? That would be nice to know. I should check it out. But if you want to learn more areas, and it takes 60 to 90 days to learn one market, that's where it starts to become challenging. Very beginning of this video, if you chase 5 rabbits, you're going to starve. So pick your area, whether it's local at a distance, and take 60 to 90 days to look at all of the data that you can until it starts to almost become subconscious to where you know when a deal stands out against the others. North Colorado Dawn. No, it was the seller's agent. The email was from Redfin notifying me that it went pending. Totally shocked. First I knew of it. Sometimes selling agents don't tell anybody that an offer was made, and they don't even tell an agent that has an offer pending. You can't make the listing agents do anything. You can hope they do, but we all know how it is to live on hopium. Cody, when you looked at your house hack, what was the most important? Rates, down payment, PMI? I'm currently speaking with lenders trying to find the best fit. I don't know that I had a focus other than in a certain area because I work and I don't want to drive too far. So I wanted that certain area. I wanted side-by-side units. So it was the type of building. I wanted at least 2 bedrooms on each side. I wanted a garage. So I wanted washer dryer hookups in. So those are the things I was looking at for building. But for when it came to rates and terms, I really don't care what I get. I don't care what the interest rate is. I don't care what the terms are. I don't care how much it costs to buy down. I care that currently, the day that I'm getting that, the day that I'm actually going to pay to lock in a rate, I've shopped around. I start with a large bank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, get pre-approved because they're the most standard. Then once I have a property under contract, I go to Guild Mortgage, Fairway Mortgage, started with credit unions, haven't had any luck with them, so I don't do them anymore. And if I get a better offer from a credit union or a mortgage company, and now I'm working with Matt, the mortgage guy's team too, I find the best deal. Then I go back to the original bank and I say, hey, here's the other offers from the other lenders. This is their interest rate. This is their terms. This is their fees. And whoever can beat it, whether it's the first one or the other one, is the one who gets the business. I would not want to get a loan unless I shopped around to figure out that day, that week, with enough offers, I got the best deal currently. That's what matters. I don't care if it's 3.5% or 10% on my mortgage. Did I shop around, and that week, based on what was available, did I get the best deal? And yes, if the rates change enough, it might change whether that deal is going to cash flow or not. But I'm not really concerned about that because I'm looking at a deal because I know what usually the rates are around. Right now they're 4 to 5% for an investor, and they might even be higher in some areas. So if I'm running a calculation at 5% to see worst case, is this going to cash flow? And then talk to lenders and get a little bit better than that because better's good. So you're doing the right thing. You're speaking to lenders to try to find the best fit. Get their offers in writing. They don't have to run your credit. They'll say, this is our rate. And they'll say, if your credit score is what you say it is, this is the rate we'll put. This is what our buy down would be. This is what our fees was, how much it costs us to notarize. Get all the fees out, show it to all of them in emails, and basically go with the one who's willing to beat the competition. Chester Williams, cash on cash return or yield? Steve Borowski, howdy. You're not too far off in Ohio. Cool. I do have a friend here in Washington who did a reverse 1031 who sold a property or purchased 2 properties in Ohio, sold a property here, messed up her reverse 1031, ended up doing a forward 1031 and getting her 3rd rental in Ohio. So I know that's a thing, but she has boots on the ground, someone there that she trusts, that she knows to get the right deal. But local investors are getting the right deals. The ones that usually go to distance investors are the deals everyone else passed on. Like Chester, cash on cash ROI. North Colorado Dawn. Rehab Valuator does that with the breakout of a deal plus the burst capable, as well as new construction, $49 a month. But to me, it is worth it. You can find owners comps. Okay, there's one option. Christopher MP, how far away from U.S. bases would you buy? I'm looking around the McNeeley area, but unsure in the UK. When I served, we generally would only look a few miles away from the base to rent. So there are criteria that I look for, whether it's the physical aspects of the property, side by side, 2 bedrooms, garage, washer, dryer, all the physical stuff, right? If it doesn't have a garage, because I've got a property that doesn't have a garage, everything else was strong enough to justify it. I want economic drivers. A base is a good one, but so is a port, a college, a hospital, a Boeing or Amazon terminal. population of 100,000 or more. So if there was no base, but there was a high population and several economic drivers, I would still buy there. If you're looking specifically to have military tenants, you are right. They're probably only going to drive 5 to 10 miles from the base. Some might commute more. For instance, Joint Base Lewis McChord is in Washington. Air Force, Army, Joint Base. On one side, it's very urban. It's Tacoma, Lakewood, cities, right? The other side, it's forest off to Mount Rainier. I own rentals on both sides. Some of my tenants, I like to keep about 1/3 are military. I've got one military family that likes living in the city, and I've got a military family they literally named the town in Texas that I'd never heard of where they came from, and they wanted to live on the woodsy side of the base. So it's distance, but not so much worried about where the city is if you're looking at the base as a source of tenants. Are there other economic drivers as well? And how many properties would you want there? Because what if there's a BRAC meeting? It's a base realignment and closure. And they decide, hey, we're going to close this base. It's gone. What happens to rents then? Other economic drivers in the area. For here, we'd have to have a base. Boeing, Amazon, Microsoft. Well, there's so many. There's port. All of these economic drivers would have to change to impact rentals here. Martin, howdy. Have you ever used OPM or would you ever consider it? So I used leverage, so I'm using the bank's money as far as other people's money goes. I have not used hard money. My brother was going to a courthouse steps one time, and it was really early on in my investing before I had purchased a property. I purchased like my second duplex. And he said, he was getting a loan for I think it was like $40,000. That's the amount that we ended up working with, but the purchase was like 63. I forget what loan he was looking for. And I said, I have 40,000 sitting in the bank. You don't need to get a loan, just use the money. So he used my money and then paid me back. I have not. It would depend on the purchase and my level of confidence in doing what I plan on. Usually if you're going to use OPM, it's hard money, or you have only a year to go or something. So am I going to finish my equity value add, my value add sweat equity, the refinance, the stability to do whatever to give the money back? So far, one of the things I really like about one rental at a time and my strategies, properties are from the MLS. Traditional lending, no secret sauce. We are the droids you're looking for. I would consider it if in the right situation, but I haven't yet. Cody, I'm personally trying to compare if it's worth putting 15% down or 3.5 or somewhere in between. I just did an FHA, but it was wicked expensive on a monthly basis with PMI. So sometimes the more you put down can impact the PMI. I've done down payments. I did one duplex at 5% down. It was when conventional would work that way back in the dinosaur days. It was like 13, 14, somewhere in there. And since then, I've done 20 or 25% down. I have a VA loan available. I could do a 0 down loan if I want to without PMI. But I like having equity in the properties. I like having a little bit better cash flow. I'm not financing as much. Interest rates are low. And yeah, I'm going to use my VA loan, but not today. So yeah, your situation would really determine whether you want to do the down payment or not. I think with rates still under 5%, 3.5 makes sense depending on your PMI, because you can get rid of PMI in a couple of years with the appreciation that we're seeing. I think with the 40-year loan product coming out, we're going to see appreciation again in the next 2 years, probably 15 to 20%, because home buyers buy on payment and your payment's down because it's stretched out longer, so you can buy more house, so prices will go up. Investors buy on yield, so you can stretch your payment out, which brings it down, and you're going to get a better yield, so prices are going to increase. Yeah, that would be a hard call. I would actually look at as much detail as you can to figure out what's best for you. What are you going to do with the money if you don't put the money down? If you put the 15% down and you don't get PMI, did you just take up all the money it was going to be going towards saving for the next investment? Might be better to have the payment with PMI and use that money in another investment and get a 10% return, which is going to be more than the PMI. So maybe somewhere in between. North Cal, howdy. Great content. Question. 25-year-old asked me about buying a $1.2 million home, but has no down or salary requirements. Might get house below market 900K. Said he can house hack for 7K a month. Ideas, Convoy, lending, private lender. Thanks. One of the things I talk about at the beginning of this video is one of the easiest ways to lose money in real estate is to think that when people talk about investing with little or no money down, they think it means that you invest with little or no money. For any deal, even one that looks like a great deal, I would want that person to have reserves and an emergency fund. Something's going to break. Something's going to go wrong. Some timeline's not going to work out. Seller financing is my go-to when it comes down to figuring out down payments for a property like that. The 40-year loan product, I would have to check with, and my brain sucks. I hate my memory. It's Convoy, something. Damn it. Somebody just said it literally up in the chat. Did the work to look it up, Pallavi, and then I forgot it. Look at that. No good deed goes unpunished. So, yeah, I don't know if I would want to do the 40-year because I think they require a significant down payment, but I would have to check with them. Conway. I don't know what I'm going to do to remember that. I'll write it on the wall here, right over there next to the poster that says you can either understand NFTs or be good in bed. You have a choice. I'll put it there. Where was I? Thank you. Martin, do you know how jumbo loan works? I'm not well enough to explain it. If someday I make a video on jumbo loans, it's going to be 3 days of research and get the chronology right on the best way to explain it and when it's applicable and when a person doesn't want to use it. But no, sorry. Currently, I do not have an eloquent answer today. So that is a good question that tells me something I need to research. Tom, I was at Fort Lewis for like 8 weeks for some training. There are on average 4 bear attacks every year on Fort Lewis. So fun place to be. Christopher, that's why we're looking at Tampa. The base is in the Cherry and your military being almost pandemic proof is a real smart insight. A prolonged government shutdown can impact the military's ability to pay. Sometimes pay can actually be delayed for military. So I wouldn't want 100% of my tenants military. And I wouldn't want 100% of my tenant base to be base dependent. There are a lot of civilians who work on a base, right? I keep about a third of my tenants military, which to me means military related. If it's somebody who works on the base, that counts in my mind as a military tenant. Because if the base closes down, a third of my units are impacted. If a prolonged government shutdown, and there was one like 69-day shutdown, military wages were still paid. So I mean that like a really bad prolonged government shutdown would have to happen for it to impact you. And every time I bring up, I like to keep my portfolio diversified. 1/3 military, 1/3 Section 8, 1/3 working or retired. Somebody will point out that it is illegal to discriminate. And I agree. You cannot, in most areas, run an ad that says military only, Section 8 only, or no military or Section 8. Right? You can't run an ad like that. But I can control where I advertise. And if I have a unit coming up and I want a military tenant and I go on, contact your local installation. There is a thing on every base called MWR, Morale, Welfare, Recreation. They don't handle housing, but they'll know who does on your installation. If I advertise with that agency on the base, what type of tenant you think I'm going to get? If I call the housing authority and I say, hey, next Tuesday at 10 a.m., here's a link to the property that I want to put on apartments.com, what type of tenant do you think I'm going to get? I can control where I advertise and do it without discrimination. And it's funny, that's actually what I don't call it pandemic proof. I called that video apocalypse proof investing. That's how I diversify my portfolio to be ready for a prolonged government shutdown, a pandemic, or a stock market crash. North Colorado Dawn, I have used Lima One and Visio lending for hard money loans. Cool. You, I think, are on the Lumberjack Landlords channel soon, and probably one rental at a time. And hopefully one day you'll be on the Dion Talk, and maybe we could talk about how hard money has worked for you, because you have done a lot of things that I haven't done. Chester Williams said Convoy Home Loans. Hi, I see that. You had the internet in front of you and you torqued me up. Convoy. And that's what gets me is there are two companies with that same name that I work with on a regular basis because I have a niece that works for one of them. Tom Klein, military can possibly screw you too. They are very protected. Remember, they are people too and can be good and bad tenant. They absolutely can. So same thing, military, Section 8, other people are people. They can be good or bad. The really cool thing with the military is a lot of people say, go in the military, it makes you better. And that's not what it does. The military amplifies you. If you go in a decent person, you come out a great person. If you go in a soup sandwich, you come out not a great person. Good and bad and everything. And I have the same response when people say, well, I would never want to do Section 8 because of all the bad stories I've heard. Well, I've heard bad stories about tenants. And if you screen the same, my Section 8 tenants have over an 800 credit score. They have never had a problem. They have a benefit where the government subsidizes their housing. They don't risk it. Don't associate Section 8 with low income housing. Those are very different animals. Section 8 is fixed income housing. So as many bad stories as people hear, they're usually talking about low income housing, whereas fixed income housing, I've never had a problem because those people, it's a 5-year wait. If you lose your benefits to get back on that list, it's a 5-year wait. Who's going to have a noise complaint or get kicked out of a property over the small amount that the tenant has to actually pay when they could lose a 5-year benefit? Christopher, I completely agree with diversification and targeted adverts are definitely the key. Thank you. Chester, soup sandwich. Tom, I rent to vets. I rent rooms. I am a vet. We have problems, and man, oh man, can we have problems. Right, but a good couple of knocks in the teeth and all the problems are gone. Did they have smoker rings in the Army too, or was that just a Marine Corps thing? I lost so much money. Guy in the Marines that I've seen in bar fights went to box another guy in our unit, and he got cleaned out. Anyway, sorry, segue, oversharing. Christopher, I had to manage many a soup sandwich when I was in the Navy. Yep, every unit's got one. And that's what sucks as an employer. Most veterans who come out, they say, most vets 50% of veterans change jobs within the first year of getting out. So they get out, they get a job, but within a year, 50% change jobs. Totally normal. But there are some veterans who can't keep a job because they are the soup sandwich. They're the guy in the unit that nobody liked, that never got along, that never pulled his weight, never did whatever, right? They're really good at interviewing and they're really good at resumes because they get a lot of practice. So most of the employers I work with, some of them think all veterans are terrible because of the one or two that came in and were so bad they had to let them go. That sucks. So the few ruining it for the many. Can make a Spock quote. Chester, the best I've heard is someone who looks like a bag of soggy jelly donuts. Nice. Tom, I got to boot one guy right now as much as I hate to. Yeah, that sucks. North Colorado Dawn, anytime you want to talk, thank you for the offer. Cool. I am going to put my email in the chat for some people who had questions earlier. You could reach out, Dawn, and we'll connect. Tom, right? Military athletics are the best. Cool. Well, we are only at 2 hours. Oh, the lumberjack landlord's going to be so disappointed if we run out of questions. So I'm going to give it a few more minutes here while people think if you have any more questions that you would like to come up with. Before we check out for the night, I'm going to drink some more vodka. The trick to keeping a straight face while taking a shot. I was very proud when my 16-year-old daughter, who's older now, but at 16, was teaching me how to do shots. Thank you, Craig, coworker, for teaching my daughter how to do shots. Put the alcohol in your mouth. Hold it for 1.5 seconds so that your nodes have a second to adjust to what's in your mouth before you swallow. Then your body doesn't have a reaction. That sentence came out of my 16-year-old's mouth. I was so proud. I was like, all right. And I tracked Craig down. Okay. Zahara? Let me know if I'm saying that right. Howdy. Hi, Dion. Thanks for holding this talk. How many properties do you recommend you have before putting them under a LLC? There is a long list of reasons why I do not have any of my properties in an LLC, and I will someday make a video that I'm going to call the LLC rant. I kind of like the way you worded it. How many properties should I have before I get an LLC? The problem is so many people who think you need an LLC when you absolutely do not, because there is no asset protection and there is no tax benefits at all, unless you have partners for the asset protection. The new investor who's never gotten a property and is just doing the research that thinks, well, I can't buy a rental because I don't have an LLC yet. And sometimes that's like the barrier that stops them forever. I have a friend who recently made a DBA for her property, and it was an afternoon nightmare of learning how to make a website and learning how to get the LLC and also to run a business, right? That totally makes sense. But for rentals, it's just not needed. Interest rates are higher. Loan products are worse. Can't house hack. Insurance rates cost more. Can't represent yourself in court. Like there's this list of reasons why no LLC. 3 reasons why you wouldn't want an LLC, but none of them are asset protection or tax benefits. When I make the video, it's going to be a rant because I'm actually frustrated with the CPAs and attorneys and uneducated people who keep saying you absolutely have to have an LLC. The CPAs and attorneys want to do it because they get paid to make them, maintain them, and file taxes on them. The uneducated people heard it from their uncle when they were 17 in 1980 and think it's the only way to go. So yeah, it's absolutely going to be a rant because it's costing people getting on the property ladder. And here's an example of how important the property ladder is, not just investing and owning a rental, but just owning a property. The average net worth in the United States of a homeowner is $220,000, like $221,000. The average net worth of a renter in the United States, $6,000. So if you rent, the average net worth is $6,000. And if you own, the average net worth is over $200,000. And some people are saying, don't invest in real estate because you don't have an LLC, which doesn't provide you with asset protection, because if you have a partner, it protects you from someone else's mistake. That is the purpose of a limited liability company. But if you're a sole proprietor, when you're sued, you're going to have to list all of your access, all of your assets. That is every single LLC that's in your name unless you have partners. So if you are a sole proprietor and you have LLCs, they're all you. Piercing the veil is more and more common. You can Google it. They're just any attorney who's not asleep will take a 5-minute Google search to figure out who owns an LLC, or if you have other assets in your name when you're sued. So for asset protection, there are 3 things. Everything comes in 3s. That's weird. First, insurance. Property insurance on each property with it. I do at least $300,000 slip, fall, or injury coverage, and then full replacement value of the property, which will probably be required by your lender anyways, that amount. Until 3 properties, that was good enough for me. At 4 properties, I added an umbrella policy, and I probably should have added it at the 3rd property. But at 4, I added an umbrella policy for $2 million. So if I'm ever sued on a property and it goes above the $300,000 injury, then it taps into the umbrella. That's asset protection. First thing. Second thing, leverage. The banks are in first position. If I'm sued, they own the properties first. I own the equity, but the bank owns what's owed on it. And third, be proactive. Fix stuff. Do walkthroughs. Feel the banister. Check things for safety. Listen to your tenants, and anything that has a safety concern, fix it as fast as is reasonable, right? Reasonable and necessary. So those are the 3 things for asset protection. There are no tax benefits to having an LLC. None. 0, zip at all. The IRS actually calls them disregarded entities. So that's the short version of what will be at least a 10-minute video of a rant on LLCs. It is a great question to ask, and it comes up all the time. So thank you for asking it, because it's an important question that you should understand. Do you have partners? You should have an LLC. It protects you from their mistakes. Do you need commercial lending or hard money? Most of those lenders, or that type of lending, is going to require an entity. So then you need an LLC. There are 3 times when it makes sense: partners, commercial lending, hard money. Sometimes people use an LLC to separate their name because they don't want people to know they're owning it. I guess that's another use for it. But all of my properties are in my name, and I use the 3 strategies for asset protection. So thanks. That was a good question. And I lost where I was at. Cool. And then you were going to let me know if I said your name right. Building a bag. Howdy. How do you purchase your second property within a year or so after buying the first? What should I be doing now to make sure I'm ready for a second property? Controlling your debt and increasing your income. Anything you can do to increase your income, because when we're adding mortgages, the barrier usually becomes debt to income for 2 years. 2 years is the problem. When you first start out, you're not a safe bet for lenders. So they're going to say, you can purchase what your debt to income ratio can handle. In 2 years, once you have owned that first rental property and you have rental income on your tax returns. And this is where the lenders I've talked to said you can show as much depreciation as you want. You can look like you lost a bunch of money, but be careful with your write-offs. Don't make your write-offs look like you lost a bunch of money. Depreciation is fine, but write-offs, they can't take out of the equation. They can take depreciation out of the equation. So some of the lenders were saying it doesn't matter if it looks like a loss with that, but if your write-offs show a loss, then that's not income. So you want it to be close to zero. Once you have that for 2 years, now you've flipped the lever. Lenders can look at the income from the property you are purchasing and 75% of rents of both rents, properties that you own and the ones that you're purchasing. So 75% of rents should cover principal, interest, taxes, and insurance if you're buying cash flowing properties. They'll look at the rent for the property you're looking at. Most lenders will require about 60% or more of your existing tenants to have at least 3 months remaining on leases. So month to month doesn't work really well for lending. I like year-long leases so that when I time it, I have at least 3 months remaining on their lease. And it confused me for a while that my lenders would let me make a 30-year commitment for hundreds of thousands of dollars because a tenant was making a 3-month commitment for a couple $1,000s. But the lender explained it to me like this. As a lender, we don't make money from collecting interest on your loan. We don't care what the interest is. We collect our money on generating the loan and collecting the payments. So even if you have a Wells Fargo loan and you're sending payments to Wells Fargo, they probably don't own the note and they're just collecting, and someone else is making the money on the interest. So if you have 3 months worth of coverage of leases in place, that means that lender can do the loan and then they have 3 months, and it's usually about 2 days before they sell it, but they have 3 months to sell your loan if they need to. So generally the first 2 years are the hardest. So adding a second property, it's usually going to come down to what your debt to income ratio is. So getting rid of as much consumer debt as possible while trying to increase your income as much as possible too, in ways that are provable. So don't change jobs and expect that income to count unless it's in the same field. You can change companies if you're doing IT work to IT work or truck driving to truck driving, but from truck driving to culinary, they might not look at that because it doesn't have a history of you being able to make money until you have 2 years in that field. So there's a couple things to look at, but after those first 2 years, now scaling becomes a lot faster. At about the 3-year mark, my lender said, you can borrow any amount that you want. We do not have a limit for you to borrow, except you have to come up with 20 or 25% down. So your ability to save the down payment becomes the barrier, not your debt to income ratio, not your credit score, not that kind of stuff, because you have a proven track record of collecting rents on your tax forms, which is the one they won't take rent payments, leases in the beginning. They want to see it on tax returns. I hope that helps. Tom. And it moved. Other ways to lose money in real estate is not to protect your investment. Have an attorney and an accountant. They are investments and write-offs. Absolutely. Have an attorney on retainer. You give them like $1,000 and then you can randomly ask them questions. I've never had one come back and say, hey, we've spent $1,000 in the last 3 years, but they're on retainer in case there's ever an eviction that needs to be done. Even just a service or whatever, they're there to bounce questions off of, because my CPA is in Alaska. Like, I don't care where my tax person is. My attorney is local to the area that I invest, because those type of laws are area specific. Taxes, not so much. That works for me because I'm in Washington that doesn't have an income tax. We just instituted, I think, our first capital gains state tax, and I don't know if it got overturned or not. But so small things that a CPA can keep up with, where federal taxes, that's their industry no matter where they're at. Chester. So on to the real estate topics. When would doing a 1031 make sense? Before or after having 10 mortgages? To get rid of a bad property, or to take advantage of somebody wanting to overpay for a property. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time says it all the time. He says, I'll sell anything if you want to overpay for it. So that's kind of when. I've half considered, I have a single family house that's paid off. It's rented to a Section 8 tenant. I've half considered that if she moved out, I would sell it and take the money and put it into a small multifamily where I get a better return. So I would do a 1031 because I haven't lived in there 2009. Yeah, that's the last time I lived there. It was 2009. Moved out of it into an apartment to get rental income on my tax returns for 2 years so that I can buy the next property. Those first 4 years are the hard. First 5 years, you need patience and you have doubt. So 1031 makes sense if you're going to get more for the asset than you expect it to go for. If it's appreciated a lot and you're going to take advantage of it. The biggest question with 1031 though is, do you have a place to redeploy the funds where you're going to get a good enough return to justify all of the expense of sale and purchase? Because that is expensive. Agent fees, filing fees, title, all lending fees, all the things that you're going to do. Delaying the taxes is good. It's just one aspect of it. And here's an overshare. I can't sell the single family house because I kept it in a divorce. And there's like this little 5-year-old in me that's like too shallow to let go of something like that. So I may sell that house someday, but not today. Mike A. Thank you. Kevin Cowton. Howdy. I buy house hacks right off the MLS and only use realtors to write up the contracts. Do you think it would be worth it to use a realtor that would rebate part of their commission like a Redfin realtor? Nope. I use agents and I purchase on the MLS or from the MLS. I'm excited when my agent gets to make their commission because they're going to bring me deals in the future. I do not see a Redfin realtor calling you and saying, hey, Kevin, look at this great deal. 2 of my properties, the agent called me and said, look, I got kind of this is about to be posted. We should probably get an offer ready info before it was even ready to go, because they know I don't try to get their commission down. So I'm not saying don't use Redfin. I'm saying if you had a choice of agent or Redfin, I would choose the agent. If you find a property and you haven't been working with an agent and they haven't developed a relationship with them and you want to start with Redfin, there's no reason not to use Redfin. I prefer to work with agents who are making money on the purchases, because that relationship is going to last decades and I benefit from it already. So if you don't have an agent, Redfin, sure. If you have an option, agent or Redfin, good agent. Filter through, shop around for agents like I talked about at the beginning of the video. We shop around for contractors, we should shop around for lenders, and we should shop around for agents. I plan to buy my next investment under my wife. My wife is not on my loan or insurance in my primary. I filed a claim on my primary. Will it show up on my wife when she will be looking for a home insurance on our investment? That is a good question for an insurance agent. I don't know this situation because tried marriage twice, practice runs, didn't stick. But I do know you can have up to 10 mortgages in your name and then 10 mortgages in her name. So together you can cumulatively have 20 mortgages before you run out of Fannie Mae, Freddie backed loans. Insurance thing though, that's kind of a unique question. I don't think your claim would show up on hers, but I would check with an insurance rep first. Yeah, so kind of a unique question, but it's definitely worth calling an agent and asking. Chester. Are there any provisions in your leases that allow renters to sublet a property for Airbnb or VRBO? There is not, but I am absolutely in favor of that. I was at our local REI meetup the second Tuesday of this month, so last week. That's why the live stream was so short. And there was somebody there talking about doing Airbnb and VRBO arbitrage. And I said, I have a place coming open in June. Absolutely. You rent it, you do whatever you want there. Yeah, so I'm all for it. I'll put it in the lease. I'll probably have to do some research before we make that lease on what verbiage I want in there. I like the idea of consistent income that I don't have to handle tenant problems with, and that's all on them. And it's very easy to do that for my properties because I use coded locks. I actually have a video on my channel called The Locks I Use on My Rentals. So that'll work out really good for Airbnb or VRBO. Christopher, I think the main reason a lot of people talk LLCs is because of the Ken McElroy book, The ABCs of Property Rental. Would it be an LLC or a partnership if it was owned by me and your wife? It's neither. You are sole proprietors if you're married. You can form a you can form a partnership with your spouse, and you can have it in an LLC. But when a husband and wife own a property, they are sole proprietors. So it's really technically neither. It can be not a property and it can be not an LLC. It can be both. So kind of a chicken and egg thing. And I would still avoid the LLC. It just adds a lot of problems you don't need, especially if you're going to use any kind of house hacking, because LLC lending, commercial lending doesn't allow owner occupancy to be a factor. You can live there. You just can't get the better rate and better down payment. Tom Kine. Christopher, what happens if you divorce? Is LLC protected, or in the divorce just brainstorming? It would not mean anything in a community property state like Washington. You both own the assets. No matter what the LLC says, you both own the assets. If one spouse gets an LLC and has all the properties there, and the other person isn't on the deed, isn't on the loan, isn't on the LLC, and you get divorced in Washington State or any other community property state, you both get half. So what happens if you divorce is a good question to stop almost all action. At some point, you have to trust your partner. Holy crap, somebody write down that I said that. It's not a bad brainstorm, though, to think, to consider outcomes. And I mean, yes, I mean, there are reasons why people have prenups, because it makes sense. This is how this would go, right? But yeah. Darkest Dreams 21. Howdy. LLC is a Dion hot button. I saw that coming. What's up, Dion? Just absorbing info. Thanks for coming and hanging out. And it is a hot button because I want to resist seeming like I'm upset at the person, because I'm upset at the people who push LLCs. Because the new investor, like if I was new to YouTube University and I was thinking, oh, I want to do rental properties, and I just went click, I want to do a rental property. Do you see how many hundreds of LLC video tip tutorials there are because it gets views? I'd probably fall for it. I probably wouldn't have been able to house hack. I'd probably have worse interest rates. I'd probably have adjustable rate mortgages and balloon payments and loan reevaluation periods and all of the problems that comes up from not having 30-year fixed rate residential debt. Take a breath. So I'm glad when people ask, because it's like, oh, I got a person. I can fix this one person. I can say, okay, let's take that out of the brain, wherever it came from. And if you have partners, need commercial lending or hard money, that's over there. If you want asset protection or tax advantages, it's all here. So I like the question. Christopher, Tom Kine, that's a very good point. However, would the LLC be liable for any divorce settlement regardless? In the UK, owning an LTD company makes the shares liable for settlement. It does. And so if you're in, and ask an attorney, because this is just a guy that's been through it twice in 2 community property states, who somehow kept custody and the house both times. It doesn't matter what the paperwork says. A judge is going to give you each half. Kind of like the biblical Bible story with the baby, as opposed to the non-Bible biblical story. Sorry. Chester. Does having an elite credit score matter? Elite being 800 plus or so. Does that allow lenders to offer a choice mortgage rate? So from every lender I've talked to, 740 or higher. So you can have an 850 or a 740. You're going to get the same rates and same terms and fees. I think if you work to get it above 800, you're a little easier to handle the dip when you buy a property, because it's going to go down 15 to maybe 25 points usually. I've seen it go down more. A friend had it go 60 points. So I think there's an issue there where he's got to work it out. But every time I've purchased a property, there's a 20 to 30 point dip that 2 or 3 months later goes away. So if you had above 800, it gives you more leeway. But 740 is what I've heard is the magic number. REI Stoners. Howdy. Looking forward to you guys moving up here. And I think you said you got a place in Kent. So that's not too far away. Maybe you'll be able to make it up to the Tacoma Phi meetup groups. How do you get started writing out a lease? Does a lawyer do it? You can do that. BiggerPockets Pro has a lease for each state. If you're going to be in Washington, REI, I can send you a copy of mine, and you might want to add things that are specific to it. I got mine from, it's no longer there. This is really weird. It was a Washington State landlord tenant resource page where resources for landlords and tenants were there, and they had the lease. So I downloaded the lease. I've been using it ever since. I've had a few things adjusted, like no water beds, lesson learned. And so I can share that with you. I would not want to share that with somebody who lives in another state, because the laws usually kind of vary enough to where the lease spells out what works in that state. Tom, Christopher, yikes. Hey, glad you're here watching in US. Christopher, Tom Kine, it's one of many reasons we've chosen the USA rather than UK. Another being that in the UK, you can no longer deduct mortgage interest as a tax write-off unless it's in a company. Wow, interesting. So an interest write-off is nice, and write-offs for expenses are nice. Depreciation is an angel. like that is a thing of beauty. It's almost like our Congress is full of people who own properties and want laws to exist to benefit people who own properties. Tom, hey, Dion, you went international. Nice. Other side of the pond. Million. You said the first 5 years is the hardest. Can you elaborate? I am on my second year, made over 10 offers and getting frustrating. So there is a video on my channel from last week called First 5 Years versus Last 5 Years. So the three amigos, Lumberjack Landlord, Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time, and me, talk about what the first 5 years were like and how long it was between things. I was 2 years between my first purchase and first duplex, and almost 2 years to the next duplex. So in 4 years, I did two things. Right? I mean, I did a lot. I learned how to get a lease and screen a tenant and figure out lending. I learned all that stuff. But what did I actually do? I bought 2 properties in 4 years. Patience and doubt and all the struggles. And Matt, the Lumberjack Landlord, and Michael Zuber both do a really good job of, Matt talks about having 7 pair of socks and having to do laundry every week because he could afford to have 7 pair of socks. And one of the biggest things in his life that he says it was like an eye opener to him was when he went from the dollar menu to the value meal at McDonald's. And I had something very similar to me. One of the biggest changes I was a single parent, a lot of bad debt, 3 kids, making $17 an hour. There was a point in my investing where the income snowball started to kick in, and I was at a restaurant. And usually restaurants meant I get an appetizer and I drink water, and the kids get what they order, right? They didn't need to know what our economic status was, but they were at a restaurant having food. There was a day where I went to a restaurant and I thought, I'm going to have a soda with my food. Like, I'm going to pay for a soda in a restaurant. I'm rich. Like, that's what the first 5 years are like. Those little things that tell us there is some progression. We don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, where in the last 5 years, I spent a month in Colombia and came home with more money than I left and did everything I could think of. I spent a month in Thailand and did everything I could not talk about on YouTube and came home with more money than I left with. I took a month with my brothers in 2021 and drove across the country and went to so as a Marine, I went to over 20 countries. I've been to 7 states up until then. And now I've been to almost everything except the northeast side. There was like some massive storm going on that month. It was just bad. So kind of missed the whole Niagara and didn't get to go to Boston and see the Lumberjack Landlord. But next trip, instead of having 3 falling apart cars where hopefully one of them runs well enough to get me to work as a cop, I bought a Corvette. And a couple years later, I buy a 250 pickup, jacked up, and write the compensator on the tailgate. I'm saving up the money now at like $1,350 a month for the next vehicle. Just things I never thought would happen that I couldn't see in those first 5 years. So that video really covers that up from 3 different perspectives. So if you get a chance, first 5 versus last 5 on my channel from last week. And there we go. Chester. What type of loan is best for a first-time purchaser in an investment property? Could a 3.5% down FHA loan be used for a first-time investor? No. Or would a traditional loan with 20% down be the best way? So you can't use FHA unless you intend to own or occupy and don't commit fraud. When I say intend, I know you can see air quotes in the air around my head, but I mean you actually must actually intend to live there. There are some times where you get orders and have to move, or change jobs and have to move, or something, and you can't do it, but don't commit fraud. So conventional, a lot of people think it takes 20 or 25% down. There are a lot of lenders who do 10% down, 15% down, 20% down on conventional loans for investment properties. Lending fear changes week to week, so we don't know which one it's going to be, and we don't know who's got the product, so you have to check around. I liked 20 or 25% down because better equity position, better cash flow, more stability. It's slower. In the beginning, it was 2 years between purchases. In the end, it's a year to a year, something like that. So FHA only if you intend to live there, and conventional is preferable if it's going to be an investment. There are non-qualifying and non-QM mortgages where it doesn't base it off of your income or debt to income ratio. It'll use your credit score, but it'll base it off of the profit that the property is going to have, even for 2 to 4 units. So it doesn't have to be 5 or more to do that. Non-QM loans. I have a friend, Alex, who works for certain lending, and that's what they do. They focus on asset-based lending and non-QM loans. So it just depends on your situation and what you're wanting to do. Greg, howdy. Have you had any issues with the Schlag lock shutting down if the wrong code is used? I installed one on a rental I'm rehabbing now 2 times. It went dark and would not respond for over an hour. No, that is a deficient lock. Should hopefully be under warranty. Take it back. And I've never had that ever. Hopefully you're doing the Schlag locks where in my video, the Schlag locks that I use on my rentals, not the ones that shows like a touch screen. Those ones, the batteries don't last. And then the ones where you enter the code and then you have to unlock or lock it, not the one that engages it or disengages it. Those batteries don't last either. But I've never had one. You can enter it doesn't have a computer that recognizes that. So you do the code wrong several times, and I've never had one lock up on me. So that's a bad lock. Julie, I'm taking my 3 rentals out of an LLC to get a better rate on refinancing. There you go. That's beautiful. Lane, howdy. Hey, Dion, Puyallup native over in Spokane for now. Just bought my 2nd house in December. I know I need 2 years of rental income on my tax. Should I just be on pause and save 25% for the first multi? I don't know if I'd be on pause. I'd still talk to lenders, figure out what fits in your debt to income ratio. Always consider seller financing because that doesn't matter for your debt to income, your credit score, how many loans you have in your name. Always be looking, because if the deal pops up, the money shows up. If you find the right deal, the money shows up. Could be a partner, could be seller financing, could be a non-QM loan, again, where your credit score is used, but your debt to income and your debt to income and work history are not a factor. That would go off credit score and ability for the property to generate income. So that's a good question, and I would look at that. REI Stoners, we would love to join the group. Cool. So it's Tacoma FI, just Tacoma FI. Send me a message. I'll send you an invite if you can't find it. It's on Facebook. We meet currently 2nd Tuesday of every month. I'm really trying to get it to move to Thursday so that I don't have to have a live stream cut short once every month. So Chester, REI Stoner, I'd recommend BP Pro, but the point we'd mentioned on tenants subletting the property for Airbnb VRBO might be something you'd want to consider adding. Yeah, fine. Like I said, I'd have to do the research and figure out the verbiage on it, which I'm going to when that person's ready. Chester, half joking here, sadly. Are any of the 535 major representatives in the House and in the Senate not millionaires, really, really, really well off? Some of them aren't when they show up, but pretty much all of them are when they leave. North Colorado Dawn, Julie. I did that earlier last year and have regretted it ever since. I am not refinancing them back into an LLC, though. Velocity Mortgage with Steve Dow. I am not refinancing them back into an LLC, though. Maybe you meant to say now. So, I don't know. Not refinancing. There you go. Tom. Chester, right on. Especially if becoming a millionaire after entering office. Exactly. now. Yes. So Chester met, not North Colorado Don met. You are now refinancing them back into an LLC. So you didn't like them in your own name and you're putting them back into an LLC. Interesting. Chester Williams, I'd like to see a 3 Amigos of Phi meetup once the quote unquote worldwide illness ends. Yes. Probably going to be in California unless we could talk Mike into going to Vegas. So I think we took a poll one time in the Facebook group. So I need to take a poll on the channel of where would the best place for a meetup be. And yeah, so I would love to see a meetup. I'm actually going to be in California end of the month. Sneak by, surprise Mike. Literally going to be a couple hours away. Million. Thank you, Dion. I think I'm complaining. Pant. I am enjoying the live when I was in debt. I will watch the video you started. Awesome. Cool. Thank you. In North Colorado, Don knows it messes with me, so he pulled the message back. Tim Lee, howdy. First time to live stream. Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Can you clarify savings plus income snowball allowed you to purchase properties moving forward? I have 2 properties now, and it seems impossible to buy more. Prices are increasing. We're seeing rates go up, so it's going to seem difficult. And there is no supply. Like there's to have a balanced market, we need a little over 3 million listings, and there's 900,000. I mean, we're way off. So this is a hard market to learn in. I totally agree. So you're saving. I had a savings rate, some from income, some from W-2 income, but then you start getting cash flow from the properties. Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord also took out home equity line of credits or cash out refinance and took the capital out to recycle. I didn't do that. I just added time to the equation. Each month I can save so much from my job, and then the house was cash flowing, and I reduced my living expenses so I could save more from my job. And then I added a duplex that was cash flowing. And so I added that money to the savings. I didn't take the trips in the first 5 years. I didn't get the new nice car in the first 5 years. I didn't increase lifestyle for those 5 years. At around the 4 to 6 year mark, so I want to say 5 years, but it's within there because your position might be a little different in the beginning than mine was. The income from the rentals, because you have more than one. And here's what's really cool. And one of the reasons why I really like small multifamily. Let's say rent goes up $100 on a single family house or a duplex. I'm now making $200 more on the duplex than the $100 on the single family. And in our area, single family houses and duplexes almost rent for the same. There's like a 3% difference. I mean, it's like $50 on a $2,000 property. I mean, even if that for house versus duplex. So a rent increase, because rents are going up on a fourplex, where I'm getting pretty much the same rents I am on my duplexes, is significant. So the income snowball is when you have more sources of income and they literally start to snowball. The trick is avoiding life creep. Don't let those other expenses outpace the new income. And there goes the voice. Christopher, would you provide these things like Ring doorbell and electric vehicle chargers in your rentals going forward as a selling feature? I haven't yet. I do the coded log. Mine are all in Class C neighborhoods. So in Class A or B, that might be something that you would consider. I don't know anybody who has an EV. Some have some hybrids, some of the tenants. So maybe something to watch to see how more common they become. The Ring doorbell, I would allow a tenant to install one. I don't put them in myself. If I was doing short-term rentals, it would absolutely be a part of it. And maybe EV short-term rental car chargers is a thing too. Tom Kine. They moved. Okay. Tom. Dion, sorry about the crosstalk while you hold discussion, but this is my best place to bounce questions and thoughts with everyone. Too bad we don't syndicate pool funds for investing too. And please have crosstalk. I think everybody talking to each other, that's great. This is everyone that's here's channel. Everyone can leave the comment. So don't apologize. Thanks. Greg, thanks. I'll try to swap it. It is a deadbolt with actual push buttons and a knob. Okay, so that's the ones I use. And it just sounds like there's something wrong with that one. Tom, meetup in Maryland. Maryland, your vote. It's Maryland. I was thinking Maine, like where all the Stephen King books are. Chester, is there a limit on points a lender can offer to purchase down? I'd imagine there's a point limit where the lender doesn't make enough interest to justify offering the loan. They usually offer like 3 options. You might ask if they have more, but I've usually been offered like, here's the 3 amounts you can pay and what it would do to the interest rate. So I've never thought to say, is there more? Could be an option too. Christopher, Cardiff, Wales is a great city for a meetup. Nice. I think we should do Pattaya in Thailand or on the island of Koh Tao. If anybody who's a scuba diver, it's amazing. Scuba diving with 35-foot whale sharks to where when it goes by, there's like shadows and it moves its tail and fin or whatever you call the end of it. And the whole water cavern, it just moves that you're in. So amazing. We should do that. Who's up for flying to Thailand? Chester, preferably I want to buy enough points until I'm down to like 2% interest rate loan. Yeah, it depends on the lender. I haven't seen them with the ability to do that. The last loan I was looking at, I think I could buy it down to a 3.8. So rates are a bit higher now. But remember, rates are like taxes. I don't pay the interest. I don't pay the taxes. I don't pay the principal down. I don't pay the insurance. I don't pay to replace the water heater. I don't pay to put the roof on. Tenants pay for all that. You run your numbers with principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and then a percentage for repairs and maintenance. That's where the water heater and everything comes in. And then there's profit. That's the me part. I do want to make a video, and I'm going to take like 3 minutes maybe and explain this video that I want to do. It's not breakdowns. It's maintenance and things breaking on a rental property do not impact cash flow unless you do it wrong. So principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, CapEx, maintenance, and vacancy is a percentage that's set aside. That in the beginning, when you first buy a property, it feels like a water heater breaking comes out of your pocket because you're taking money out of your account to do that. But that 15% that I do of gross rents, I've never in a year of replacing roofs and garage doors ever come close to 15% of gross rents. The tenants are paying for all of the. I get to the point where, hey, what can I fix? What can I upgrade? I've got all this money sitting over here. I mean, I can use it to invest, but that's the money to protect my assets. So a new roof. Just did a garage door about a month ago. It was like $19.50 plus 2. It's like $2,050 worth of tip. I'm glad that happened. I now have a brand new garage door at a rental. I didn't pay for it. 15% of gross rents went into an account, and a tiny little fraction of the amount that's actually in there covered that repair. So I don't know that I'd be too worried about interest rates being down because people were making money with rentals when interest rates were 18%. It's 3 things: price, rate, rents. Run them all together. North Colorado Dawn. My new rate isn't going to be much higher than my personal rental loans were, plus my debt to income will go back down. I have been getting denied credit because I have too much real estate debt. Really? So you have a lot more than 10 units. Because in those first 10, I've had lenders literally right now say, you don't have a limit. What down payment can you save? That's what you can buy. Maybe it changes after 10. Dave. Howdy. Howdy with the schlag locks. How do you handle giving out the code to non-residents such as contractors? Do you have to change the codes frequently? Kinda. So if it's a new contractor I've never worked before, yes, I'll be out there to change that code relatively quick. If it's my handyman and a contractor that I've used several times, like a plumber that I just know this is the guy that goes and does all my plumbing stuff, I just give them code. Any contractor that's going to come and do any work to your house, a lock is not a barrier. You are not stopping somebody from coming into your house that has all the tools it takes to work on your house. So sharing that code, yes, I will change it if it's to someone that I've never interacted with before, just so that it looks like I was proactive. But I know that if somebody wants in that house, they're getting in. I'm more interested in changing codes between tenants than I am between contractors. Cody, I'm in for Thailand. We could change locations every year. Yep. Christopher, Thailand sounds good to me. Chester, got my passport renewed. Have you visited Chiang Mai? I did go to Chiang Mai. I have thousands of videos of a 6-hour zip line and swimming with elephants and going in the cage and playing with tigers. And no, they're not drugged because those freaking things knock me all over. And riding a tuk-tuk on the freeway, cars going by us. Chiang Mai is beautiful. And yes, there were some temples that you can go walk through and real good artsy history stuff. But the really cool thing about Thailand is it's like this live chat. None of us would know where the people are from until we heard them talk. We couldn't tell if you're from Texas or Maine or Washington or California until we hear the tone in your voice. In Thailand, you walk around and you see a person walk up to you and it's Dutch, it's German, it's Spanish, and they all look exactly the same because it's Spain Spanish, not Latin culture, South America that I'm used to when I went to Colombia. Yeah, Chiang Mai was really nice. Where did I put? Okay, Chiang Mai. I saw a guy who used to live in Ohio and now lives there with a digital nomad. He walked around on Periscope and did a day in the life of. Yeah, there's a couple videos I watched. So before I went to Thailand, I took six months to learn Thai. No, get to Thailand, realize everyone speaks English. So 6 months for nothing. But I watched a lot of videos on things to do, things to watch out for, tourist traps, and there's some really good channels on Thailand. And someday, when I am no longer working, that's the beauty of YouTube. These videos will be made on the beach in Thailand to figure out the lighting. Christopher, we're looking at taking around 150 to 200,000 of equity out of our property in the UK. We plan to purchase a business with 100 in Florida, the rest for property. Would that enable us to scale quicker? So it's kind of going to be the same problem of getting the business to have consistent income for 2 years that you can show proof of income for loans where your business is lending. You need the rental income for 2 years to show that you can do rentals. So that's like that 2 years is the barrier. So you might end up having to take that money that you're looking to put into properties and use a non-QM loan or something where work history, debt to income ratio, and that kind of stuff doesn't matter as much. So it doesn't make the first 2 years look as good, but once you have the rental income and once the business is established and has that income history, it's a lot easier. It's a litmus test. The lender doesn't know you. You are an unknown. You don't know if this business is going to be successful. You don't know if you can find tenants, screen tenants, keep tenants, collect rent, maintain the property, like all the steps that it takes to run that for about 2 years. So to protect you and them, that's where all those barriers come from. And I don't know about the scale quicker. It's possible to scale quicker, but remember, the faster you scale, usually the less cash flow that you have. I know some investors, I personally have talked to them, that have close to 100 units, and their cash flow is a third of mine, and I have 16. So they're going to grow faster. They're going to gain much more appreciation. They're going to experience much more principal pay down, but they have 100 units to deal with almost, and they don't have the cash flow yet. So scaling fast, usually it's all balances, cash flow, stability. So you figure out what works best for you. North Colorado, locks keep honest people honest. True. So do cameras, or even fake cameras. Christopher, my wife will run the business, and when work permit comes, I'll be working as an engineer, which is what I do in the UK. Cool. So that adds a bit of a delay too, to when you can start showing consistent income. So it makes that seller financing or non-QM loans or asset-based lending look a little more attractive for the situation. Chester, one other book I'd recommend that I'm going to start reading after the stream is Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as If Your Life Depends on It by Chris Voss. A lot of people recommend that book. I've heard it from a lot of people. And from what I've gotten from it, because I have not read like the unedited version, I've done some videos, like the cliff notes of it. It's swap meet mentality. If you go to a swap meet, a flea market, whatever they call it in your area, and you go up to a table and there's an item for sale and you pay the price they're asking, you kind of insult the culture. You're supposed to barter and negotiate, and they name a price, you name a price, and you don't want to go. So if you want to pay $5 for something, or let's say you want to pay $10 for something and they have it for 15, you don't offer 10 because they're going to come back at 12 and a half. Never split the difference. Come offer 5 and then they split the difference and put you back at 10. So there's some concepts in there that never split the difference, and learning how to negotiate is powerful because you're negotiating all the time. Contractors, tenants, lenders, agents, you are always negotiating how much time they're going to put into you, what rates they're going to get. And so, yes, I think reading or listening to a book like that, it definitely can't hurt. And yes, there is an audiobook on how to never split the difference. Yes, the live comments, I leave them up. So about an hour after the video, all the live comments are there. So there'll be a live chat button you can click on, and all this will still be there, just like now. And actually, as you watch the video, the live chats show up at the timestamp that they were put in. I did not hit mute. It's on your side this time. I have hit mute before. Someone else tell me. Can you hear me? I'm not muted. Okay. Fine. So Dawn's messing with me probably. All right. Okay, where was I? Sorry to get the comments once it is over. Yes, the live comments will be there. So there's an audiobook on it. Christopher, Tom, you can download the transcript after the fact. North Colorado, Dawn. I am going to start building 4plexes that I want in my personal name until I get 10, then put them in commercial loan and repeat. Better cash flow to help offset DTI. Good plan. I do like 4plexes, and I'm on a path right now. I'm looking for my next 4plex. I only own one. So right now it's a single family house, 4 duplexes. 1, 2, 3. I don't know. That's a great problem to have. I can't count my units, but 1 triplex and 1 4plex. If you have 10 4plexes, that's 40 units. So it scales faster. That's the benefit of small multifamilies. It scales faster than small single family houses do. And then North Colorado loses his sound. Tom, thanks. Have a good night. Chester, we can hear him fine. Thank you. Cody, North Colorado. My buddy is doing the same thing, but with duplexes. He's on his first, but should turn out great. Awesome. Thank you, Christopher, for letting me know you can hear me. Army Phaser. Howdy. It looks like once again I'm late to the party. Guess I will have to rewind. Cool. Hope to see you at the next one. Greg, good chat. Thanks. Good night. Have a good night. I know we're getting kind of late, especially on the East Coast. You guys are killing it. Cody, one idea is to condo them. You could be worth more than. True. Pallavi, yes. Thank you. Okay. I am going to now continue for at least 2 minutes because I want this to show a full 3 hours on the video. So if we have another question or two, it'd be great. If not, I'm just going to bust out with the ballot and you guys are going to have to deal with it. Or there's a leave button somewhere. US screen. Howdy. 2 weeks out from closing a commercial loan on a 6plex. Locked 30-year fixed rate, no points at 4.625. Lender would allow me to buy rate down to 4.1. 3.75 points. It'd be a hard call. It depends on how long you're going to keep it. Again, that was what I talked about earlier. The longer you're going to keep a property, the more likely I am to buy down the points. Yong412. Howdy. Howdy, Dion. Love your channel. If you have extra money, will you buy more properties or pay down mortgages in this difficult market? I am not never. I don't ever really want to pay down a mortgage that's less than 6% interest because I'm able to still consistently find 10% or better cash on cash returns. If that scales down to an 8%, I'm probably still going to buy properties. If it scales down to a 6%, now I might pay off a 4.8% mortgage. So it depends on the return. If I'm unable to find a return Eventually, it might make sense to pay down mortgages, but I don't see me paying down a mortgage until I get to at least 10, because at 10, I have a choice to make. Most of us have the same choice. At 10, do we go commercial lending, or do we pay off a mortgage to have 9 to add another? That's when I would pay off a mortgage, more so than rates, and finding a property is hard to do, because deals are out there. They're still popping up. Keep working, learn the market, keep doing the work, 20 minutes every day. Every month that goes by where you increase the money that you're saving, yes, we're losing money to inflation. But the more money you get in the account, the more options that open, because you need down payment, closing costs, reserves, immediate repairs. And so that bundle, as it grows, you can look at more and more expensive properties. And that doesn't mean you look for the same property that costs more. Now you can start looking at triplexes and fourplexes, and then maybe the more expensive side of town, or something like that. 3 bedrooms each side of a duplex instead of 2 bedrooms each side of a duplex. So I'm continuing to save, looking for the next property. I'm not paying down a mortgage. I have enough in savings right now to pay off a mortgage on a duplex. And that's a temptation. Like, that would increase the cash flow on that, because you are adding the principal down payment and the interest to your cash flow. Because right now, the principal down payment, the principal portion of that loan, geez, words are hard, is yours. It's coming to you, but it's going into the property. So to your cash flow, you're adding those two things. So there is a temptation there. It doesn't just give you the 4% that you, or whatever that the mortgage was. You're not just getting the interest. You're getting the cash flow of the principal down payment. Jesus. Someone tell me how you would actually say the portion of a loan that is paying down the principal in the short term. There's like a word that means that. So it is a hard choice. I'm continuing to look to buy, because even if you buy a deal that's only an 8% or a 6% return, as long as it's better than your average in your area, and your average might be going down as the market gets harder and harder right now with less and less inventory, you are also gaining appreciation once you buy it. You are getting the principal pay down. You're getting all the tax benefits because you have new depreciation to start using against your passive income from your other rentals. More benefits to buying than paying down a mortgage. Future Dion video: pay off a mortgage or invest? What if I can name the characters? Investor, somewhere that means pay off debt. Okay. John, thanks for another one. Thank you, John. North Colorado. Cody, it's a good idea. Thank you. Thank you, Don. Christopher, thanks, Dion. Great advice. Tonight, 3 a.m. on the other side of the pond, so I'm tapping out. Yeah, good night. Jeez. Thanks for hanging out with us. It was cool. Cody, North Colorado, Don. Increase the value of my duplex by $100,000, and same with his condoing them. Cool. Chester, thanks again for another awesome live stream. So I'm going to go through and say thanks to everybody. If there's any questions, I will get to them. Cody, thanks. Don, Cody, that is definitely worth looking into. I am planning on building at least 20 quads to keep and pass down to my grandkids. Cool. Darkest Dreams 21. You need to learn to stroke your beard when discussing serious points. I'll work on that. Cool. Cody. Dawn, awesome. I would check with your county and see if you can split them and do a survey for the property. Costed about $3,000. Chester, amortization, portion of the loan that pays down principal. Is that what that is? Is that what that means? Really? I always thought it was the definition of as interest is paid down, like the difference between principal being paid down. Wow, I'm going to have to Google that and educate myself, because I always thought it was like amortization was the loan payments over time. You pay more into the principal and less into the interest, and it's like a crisscross. So I just had a concept more than the actual use of the word. Cool. And I want that video. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. It's been an awesome night. And if you're going to hang out here for just a second, I'm probably going to wrap this up with a ballad. Because sometimes when we learn things, it takes music to create that consistency in our mind, where like we can sing the ABCs. So if you really want to be good at real estate investing,